It's in LA. Sarah, OC. Is it LA?
I've got
They're the LA Ducks.
I don't think it's actually.
It's
just a bunch of
How long are hockey games?
Oh, you read it?
I was on.
That's what I got.
Yeah, he said he's like.
Okay.
Not as long as.
It'll be like.
Well, I was
Yeah.
actually.
Should I like bundle up?
It's easier.
It can get cool.
to power through it, but yeah,
I
I just have like.
Well, I think
weird
it's invited me to a
motivation.
Ducks
Yeah.
game. I thought it was basketball until like.
Oh, but I mean, said it like five. Well, I said it once. I was like,
Yeah, I was like, sure, yeah.
That'll be a fun game.
What's the game? Tomorrow?
I'm
It's
just
the
I'm gonna be literally down the street for the evening.
Oh, yeah. You wanna come?
Oh, okay.
Actually, I don't have a ticket.
Who are they?
Buy
Okay,
one.
quick, because I know we have presentations and things. My family changed a little bit. My sister had a baby. So that was my weekend. I know, we're so excited. That's my daughter holding baby Maggie.
I thought that was your sister.
That was not my sister. That's my daughter. And that's baby Maggie. And she's reading her first book. So that was exciting for us. My quick story, my sister, she's a bit crazy. I don't know what she was thinking. So she had a baby. That's the crazy part. What's that? First, yes. Yes, her first baby. And she had the baby Wednesday, unbeknownst to me. She didn't tell anyone until she showed up at my door. She put the baby down in like the car carrier thing at my front door, rang the doorbell, took off, and hid behind the corner. My daughter opens the door and is like, Oma, there's a baby here. There's a baby. And so she didn't tell anybody. My parents didn't know. Like nobody. Like, okay, her husband knew, but like no one else. Not his family. No one knew. And so she just showed up at my house on Saturday with a baby, which was, very exciting and wonderful.
Did you know she was pregnant?
Yes, that part I didn't
Okay,
say.
I was supposed to say. I'm like, what do you?
I have no idea.
She just I thought her fashion was changing, and she was like very into like this kind of,
Oversized.
yeah. I don't know what's stylish anymore. No, I knew she was pregnant, but it was a few weeks early, so
Do you have a big camera that like recorded it?
yeah, did she record y'all? That would have been funny.
she did.
Oh, she don't like
Yes,
TikToks.
her husband, he recorded it all, and she so I came around because I was doing yard work in the back, and so I just came around to the front, and I saw like this baby in a baby carrier. I'm like, no way, that's a cool baby. But she still looks very pregnant, right? Because she only had a baby like a few days ago. You're still like huge, and so but that's not yours, right? Like there's still a baby in there. She's like, no, that's it. I'm like, no way! I couldn't believe that. Like, it was hard, like to connect the dots. I know it seems foolish now, but you have the hindsight is 20/20, right? You have the benefit of knowing. I was in shock, like an absolute utter shock. I could not believe she didn't tell anyone. Like, hey, going into labor, pray for me. Nothing, like silence. And she was not silent. She was still texting us. Like, she was texting us stuff like random things. Like she was like, hey, do you want what she asked us, do we want Seahawks Rams tickets for Sunday? And I'm like, nah, I don't feel like going. It's too far. I just don't want to do that. I know, but our lives are different, right? Like I got a lot going on in my house. I have crazy children. So I just didn't feel like doing that. But I didn't know, like she was saying, do you want these tickets? Because I can't go. I have birthed a child. But she was doing that like while in labor. It's just weird. Like she's crazy. Anyways, I'm super excited. Babies are the coolest. I love babies. This is the first child in my family that I've been around for besides my own. Like, that's like my brother's kids, they were born while I still lived in Korea. So this is the first time I get to like be around a baby and like just hug it and kiss it and squeeze it. And then like now I have to change diapers or like I can still sleep well. Like I'm so excited about this. I can get all the good parts, none of the bad. It's like I won the lottery. Like, I want more siblings just so they can have babies. Like that's now I've like reoriented goals in my life. Like that I can't go back and like do that for my parents, but I'm just trying to think how do I get more baby in my life? Like, but like not my own. Like, I don't want more kids. Not my own babies.
When you all start having kids, we'll drop them off at your house.
Please do. I would love that. That'd be great. Oh man, like there's nothing better. I think instead of puppies on campus during exam times, they should bring babies.
No.
Like you just like.
And they start crying, you're like, okay.
Yeah, right. Just give them that sleeping babies. Just like beautiful, peaceful sleeping babies. There's nothing better
You
than
can
a
rate our
sleeping
babies.
Who?
We can rate our babies. Just
Rate.
put a sticky note on them, be like, it was an 8 out of 8.
I'm not gonna grade the baby. I appreciate just the extension of what I do onto babies, but I don't know. I think I would just be happy that they exist. I just like holding
I was
them.
thinking
Very
the
nice.
opposite.
Very sweet.
I'll go.
I go.
It's a solid.
He's not showed off.
Yeah, this baby needs to
also
chill
not
out
showing
more.
off.
That's a C baby. It's like too high strung.
Baby is too many filler words.
This baby didn't have good eye contact. It can't open its eyes. Relax. Oh, good point. Anyways, I was just super excited. I'm a happy uncle. So that's my life right now. I didn't know like they made stickers of you. Like that's cool.
Sounds good.
Doesn't it look like him?
It does.
It really does. Sorry, it's like a Van Gogh painting. But it like looks really good. Like it looks just like Cody.
Cody.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I still have my ear though.
Right, you still have your ear. Good point. Good point. I'm in a different place today. I'm sorry. What's that?
I think we all are.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I hope it's a good place. I hope you're in a no. Okay. Well, come on over. Come on over to my place. It's really good. I'm in a great place in life.
So welcome.
Yeah.
Come over.
Yeah, please join me. Join me in this wonderful space. All right, so we're going to talk about organizational health, one of my absolute favorite topics. This is something that wasn't originally in the curriculum years ago, but I've become obsessed with the idea of organizational health over the past maybe 3 years or so, just before COVID, maybe a year and a half before COVID. I was getting really into this idea, doing a lot of research and conducting research in this area. I think it's hard to say. I have mixed feelings, I'll be honest. I absolutely love it, but it might be not in your economical best interest to dedicate your life to it. What I mean is PsyOp did some interesting like salary reviews, and they always do this, and they put out articles once a year, and they see like what are the disciplines or areas in which IO professionals are working, and what are the salaries that they command in those types of positions. And so if you're an IO psychologist with a PhD, just generally speaking, I think it was like $109,000 salary, something like that per year, something like that. I forget. If you're a IO psychologist with a PhD that specializes, so now we're like have specialization. So there's just the general people, but then there's the specialist. If you're a specialist in like strategy, organizational development and change, it's like $130,000, $140,000 a year. Cool. I think I need to develop my specialty here. But if you're a specialist in organizational health and well-being, it's like $98,000 a year. I'm like, what? How is that less than just general IO person? So I was a little dissuaded initially when I saw that, but my interests are still within organizational health because I think it has a significant impact on the sustainability, the long-term success of organizations. And I know for myself that I want to be in an environment that celebrates health, that recognizes that there are barriers to health, that there are hindrances to optimum performance, and we can address those things. We can identify, quantify, and speak to ways in which we are prevented from performing at our best. And I like entering into that space. I like being able to conduct research and identify ways in which we can isolate the things that are either helping people or hurting people and removing those things or adding to the ways in which we can help people in meaningful ways. So that's what I consider, broadly speaking, organizational health to be. It is a very broad topic, and it's not like nailed down succinctly in the research literature yet, because it is relatively new in terms of scholarly work. So some of the article and material that I've provided you is from McKinsey. McKinsey's not a scholarly, I mean, it's not academic, right? It's not scholarly in that domain. They certainly have high caliber statisticians and research. I mean, it's a top 4 consulting firm in the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. It's legit, right? I trust the findings that they have, but they don't have the same parameters with which they operate. What I mean is, let me just specify a little bit about what I mean. And this will make more sense next semester when we're talking about statistics. So let me just enter into that space for just a moment with you. I know how excited you are for statistics next semester. It's a fun class. I talk a lot. I lecture like the whole time. So you're going to get the full me in that environment. I talk a lot less here. For the rest of the program, I talk in all the classes a lot more. So I'm sorry, or you're welcome. I'm not exactly sure how you'll receive it. One of the two. So in statistics, we have like p-values, right? Like I'll remind you of this at a later date, but essentially a p-value is the error rate. So what kind of error rate, the type 1 error are we dealing with? I walk into Kaiser and they say, congratulations, Dr. Fuller, you're pregnant. I know, it's very pertinent to the topic. And I say, oh, again? No, I'm just kidding. I say, hold on there. That's a false positive, right? That's what we're talking about. And so there are false positives with pregnancy tests. They're like 0.02% or something. A very, very small false positive rate, but it's possible. With, does anyone know the psychology cutoff for p-values? Like, what is it? Yeah. 0.05. Chandler's on it. She's got it. Like, it's drilled into your brain. Yeah. So in that sense, what we're dealing with, if we turn that into a percentile, move the decimal place over, we're talking about a 5% error rate. 5% chance that this is a type 1 error that we say, there's something there when there really isn't. Like the pregnancy kind of example, right? So there's something there, but there really isn't. It's a false positive. So there's a 5% chance when we're talking about 0.05 p-values. In scholarly academic material, the cutoff is typically 0.05. Anything above that, and we're like, there's too much risk involved there. We can't really trust that evidence that much. Does anyone have a sense of, do businesses operate with a 5% risk? No, they have a lot more appetite for risk, way more. And so if they have a p-value of 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, it depends on what they're dealing with, but they might be perfectly fine with that. They might say 10% risk of being wrong, false positive. That's fine. I have a few friends that work for consumer product market research firms, like think tanks in Korea. They do really fun stuff with like, we call it ramyun, but ramen is what we call it here. So they'll do they work for like big organizations for like food industry stuff. And they'll send out surveys and make phone calls and collect all this data to see what people are into, what kind of food they like. So to pick between like flaming hot Cheetos and like, I don't know, what's another chip? What's that? Takis. Okay. Flaming hot Cheetos and Takis, and trying to like understand consumer demand and market research and all that. If they have a 0.1 p-value, are they going to toss out thousands of participants and say, it doesn't meet our 0.05? Absolutely not. They're going to say, okay, there's a 10% chance we're wrong. I'll take a 90% chance of being right here, and say like consumer demand is a little bit higher in this particular season or time of year for flaming hot Cheetos versus Takis. And so we should allocate some more of our resources towards that. Is that true in the medical sphere? Hey, if you're in a medical setting, is their cutoff 0.1? Absolutely not. Is it 0.05? Absolutely not. When they're dealing with drugs that are life and death, trying to discern if they're going to be helpful for you or not, their cutoff is 0.001, a 0.1% chance of a false positive. Different industries, different standards. So when we're talking about where does this information come from, I just want you to have in the back of your mind that we have different criteria, different levels of rigor. If it's in a scholarly journal, it's going to be less than 0.05%, like of a percent chance, 0.5% chance of a type 1 error, okay? If it's a medical type of information we're dealing with, then the likelihood will be even less. But if we're dealing with a McKinsey article, their risk is much higher. Their appetite's much higher, and it might be 0.1. So maybe we take it with a grain of salt, but there's probably legitimacy in large data sets for that. So I just want to keep that in the back of your mind. When I do introduce information to you that's not of a scholarly journal, We're just trying to evaluate it with the same metric. Go like, it's probably good, but there are different levels to this game. Okay. So in organizational health, when McKinsey's talking about the different facets that contribute to what health looks like, we have a variety of domains. One thing that I'm excited about in my research that's not in the stuff that you read is that we have these different domains in which organizational health is being evaluated and measured. But the absence of something that I think we are uniquely oriented for here at CBU is to identify and hopefully add a voice, contribute to this conversation that's happening in the field, is in spirituality. It's not there. Spirituality, and I'm not saying you have to be a Christian to have organizational health. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying spirituality, broadly speaking, of any discipline, domain, or practice, is something that matters to people, is something that people find value in and might center their life around or include in the definition of what it means to be healthy. And so by excluding that, by not having that for fear of whatever they're fearful of, and I understand McKinsey doesn't want spirituality to enter into maybe some of the sophisticated metrics of what they're trying to use. I get that. I get the reservation there, but I think they're missing it. I think they're missing valuable data. They're ignoring what many people find incredibly meaningful and valuable for their lives. And so what I aim to add to that conversation, in addition to what McKinsey's already done, is include spirituality as a measure, as an aspect of what it means to be an organization that assesses and measures organizational health. So I just want to put that on your radar to invite you to join me in my research if you're interested. I meet with graduate students once, I think right now we're meeting like once every other week. Sometimes we meet every week, depending on kind of what the schedule demands, but that's what I'm doing. And we're analyzing data on a regular basis. We're launching and putting together studies for the future. So that's where I'm coming at it. That's my perspective on organizational health, kind of where I see we uniquely can contribute to that. So I'm excited for your presentations today because I love this stuff, and I'll be really excited to hear all the wonderful things you have to say. So let's get started. We have a bunch, right? We have a bunch of presentations. I'm worried that we won't have time, but we're going to be like fast, right? We're going to try and get everything set up, be super fast. I might be the only one that provides feedback for you just to keep it moving. But as I'm giving feedback, the next person up, you know the routine. All right, good. Questions? Thoughts? Excitements? Yay! Oh man, we are coming down to it. This is it. This is it. I'm excited. This has been such a good semester. Such a good group. Okay. Who's up first? Woo!
Oh, you left the camera thing up here.
Oh, right. Sorry. Didn't mean to make you self-conscious, but you are being recorded.
So the reminder.
There. So when you're ready, just hit You are welcome, everyone. Yes.
It's a good life hack.
Yeah, very nice.
Is that, yeah, if you're presenting on that.
It's a different demographic.
Yeah.
Well, that means that's in the doctoral program. They're going to be different.
Are you all presenting today? That'll be me next week.
Sorry, you didn't have to wait for me. Go ahead. Thank you, Delora. I appreciate it.
Hi guys, I'm Delore, kicking off the day. So yeah, organizational health. For my presentation, I'm trying to really draw a parallel between personal and organizational health because for me, this is kind of what made me understand really the components of organizational health and make it kind of seem almost obvious as opposed to something complicated. So that is what we're doing. So opening up the floor, just wanted to see a couple shout outs on how do you guys take care of your personal health? No right or wrong answers here. Gym. Sleep.
Going outside.
Going outside, love that. Anything else? Anything like that?
done.
What is it?
I get my nails.
Getting nails done, self-care. Anything else that like would shock anyone else if you said it?
Chandler and I said therapy.
Okay. Not shocking, but what was the last one? Puzzles? Perfect, yes. Intellectual stimulation. There we go. But literally all those things you guys just said, I'm glad you said because that's what I put in my slides. So yeah, first talking about personal health. I kind of just broke it down into components here: physical, mental, social, and spiritual. So obviously physical, we kind of all just said it: exercise, nutrition, whatever it is that meets that, treating your body like a temple, routine doctor visits for preventative measures, as well as mental health. So maybe just processing emotions, de-stressing by having fun, going outside, and then puzzles for intellectual stimulation. And then we've got the social component. So that can be any form of building relationships or connections, whether it's in your family, friends, sense of community in the cohort, anything like that. And then lastly, spiritual health. Doesn't have to be just religious, maybe just being part of something bigger than yourself or a higher purpose, sense of direction. That's why my head kind of lit up when he said spirituality, because I was like, hey, that's in my slides. But yeah, kind of summarizing personal health components here. And the thing is, they're all connected. So they're all kind of interdependent on one another and also connected to each other. So if one's kind of deteriorating, it kind of affects other ones, or maybe one's stronger, it can help your other components as well. And so when it comes to the actual content that we were reading, something I really liked was this parallel that they kind of built in one of the articles between personal health, specifically physical, mental, and social well-being, to competence, goals, and culture and change. I kind of asked the same question though, because where's spirituality in this? But I understand it's a sensitive topic. But I really liked this. So using this and then I think one other external source and then the McKinsey information, I kind of just drew the parallel between personal and org health, which is here. So first, instead of physical health, maybe look at it as structure. And so that's like, is there an effective organizational structure within companies that can come all the way down to an org chart? Or is there reliable processes and policies? And are these policies and processes actually routinely checked, like a doctor visit, to make sure that they're still working? And are we holding people accountable within their roles and to make it work? And then next, instead of mental health, we've got culture, which obviously these aren't completely aligned, but I see the similarities. That's why I have the parallel here. So does your organization have trusting environments? Is there open communication? Is support and feedback kind of instilled in strategy in that way? And is there just a respectful culture? Can you challenge yourself in your role? Are employees being challenged and appropriately in their roles? Sorry. And then next, social can be drawn to community. So that kind of goes internally as well as externally. Is there a sense of community within your company, within your coworkers and whatnot, as well as is your community or is your company as a whole connecting with other companies, maybe in partnerships, or if you're working towards a similar goal to save the planet or something like that, if you're kind of working together and aligning with each other. And lastly, spirituality, I think, can relate to more of a sense of direction. So establishing a shared vision and mission at the C-level all the way down to employees. It may not be religious in that way, but more so being a part of something bigger than yourself in a way. And why does this all matter? Just kidding. These are all connected, all dependent on one another and all equally as important. And so why does it matter? if we don't take care of our personal health and just just focus on work all the time, we get sick. And though an organization won't get sick, the same thing will happen. If we don't pay attention to these components, they're gonna experience stress, and then it'll strain employees, strain processes, things are gonna go downwards. And why does it really matter money-wise? Well, McKinsey even said it right here, that the companies with the top organizational health index ratings had been making up to 3 times as much as the ones with low ratings. So if you wasn't already incentive enough to be healthy for the sake of being healthy, there's also a financial aspect to it as well. And with this information, what can we do about it? Well, as IOPs entering the course here soon, we can, at least in my opinion, I think this analogy was a good way to communicate it to kind of make it easy to understand. So maybe when you're talking to whoever board, like whatever board you're on at the time and they don't get the lingo, this might be a good analogy to explain. And then just understanding the connections between all of these components, and they're not separate, they're all connected, and they affect one another. And lastly, basically start measuring organizational health, whether we want to use McKinsey's tools or by the end of this program, we should know how to make those surveys ourselves and not have to pay for it, hopefully. Just start looking into our respective organizations wherever we're working and start assessing it so we are aware of it and can improve it. And that is all I have. Thank you for your time. Okay, just one feedback from you.
Yes. What did you like most about your presentation?
I didn't try, like, I feel like the other ones, I tried to like tell you something you didn't know in a way. And I think with this one, I just was like, you know what, that makes sense to me. Let me try to make a parallel out of this and share it. But also I made it like 5 days ago, so I was on a different inspiration then, and it's kind of in the back of my mind now. But yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was really nice. I liked that part too, where you're drawing connections between what you think is obvious, but might not be obvious to everyone else. And I liked at the end, I think it's very appropriate to encourage people to draw this comparison for anyone else in organizations as well. It's very easy to communicate health. If you think about an organization's health, to try and win someone over to that argument, you can talk about their health. Everyone wants to be healthy, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That makes sense. And I think any manager, executive person knows the benefits and value of that. So to draw this direct line like to the individual person, speak to that person in that moment right now and say like, well, do you take your health seriously? And how does it contribute to your success? Well, they can tell you that. It's like, well, how much then should we care as an organization? In what ways are we failing to do that? And I think that makes it a really nice communicative piece where you can draw the direct comparison. So I think that has a lot of value. It was good. I liked it. I think it was a great presentation. Thank you again. Good job.
Hi everyone, how are you?
Great.
So I think we've all been searching for new jobs like our whole time in this program. So I really want to focus on how you can apply organizational health as a career. So today we're going to talk about moving towards people and culture. So people's biggest fear today with HR is that they don't trust them. So how can HR employees or how can employees gain trust in HR departments? A lot of people, when they think of HR, like, what are some things you think of when HR calls you? Anyone?
I'm in trouble.
You're in trouble. Whoopsie. So this is what people and culture is. It's a progressive approach to managing people. It is people-based and not policy-based. So essentially, you still do some of the same roles that a typical HR team would do, but you work with people and organizational culture. So I made a Venn diagram to compare and contrast human resources and people and culture. In the middle, we see that compliance, hiring processes, and organizational issues are all common things that HR and people and culture do. The difference, though, is that human resources is internal facing, which means it's for the organization, and people and culture is outward facing. So it works with the people to develop advocacy, essentially. So with human resources, they enforce policies, but with people and culture, they adopt policies that help the people. They differ from HR when it comes to the recruiting and interviewing process because they check up on you throughout your time with the company and they work on developing you as an employee. If there are organizational issues, typically HR is doing the investigations. They're the people that you think you're in trouble by. So when it comes to people and culture, they have more engagement in that and are asking you, how can I support you? Rather than, how can I support the company? Which is what most people think HR really is. So according to SHRM, most people will leave jobs because of the company culture. I know that some of us have probably worked with companies where you're just exhausted. And I think like in 10 years, when we look at history, when we see history books, when it talks about COVID, COVID was like the revolution for people to finally say, like, this is what I want from a job. Like, money comes second. My psychological well-being is what matters more. A lot of people have missed out on time with their families. A lot of people are afraid to take PTO. So people have really put their values first before it comes to a company. So I made a little brain map of my favorite things about people and culture that I kind of just took away from the readings. So I asked myself, after I read my readings and reflected, what does a positive work culture look like? I took out some points, with one being integrity. I think that when you work for a company and you don't see integrity practiced, it kind of affects your own values because then you really don't know what's right from wrong. Having a common vision, knowing that you're on the same page as everybody, works for better communication. Accountability, being able to say, like, I did this wrong, or just taking action to what you do and learning from it is really important. I think accountability matters more than like just lying about something you do, kind of ties in with integrity. Talent development. I think that most people would stay with jobs more if they were invested in, and that it would make for a better organizational culture just because people could be on the same page again. And fostering a positive environment, kind of just what I touched base on in the last slide. Everybody cares about their psychological well-being, and we see companies that offer things like unlimited PTO, but if you're trying to foster an environment and you offer unlimited PTO, like, how can I take my unlimited PTO if you're telling me that even though it's unlimited, I still have stipulations to it, things like that nature. That's just one example. So I recently, when we were doing Dr. Iverson's popular perspectives pages, I listened to a leadership podcast, and something that I connected to with this podcast man, Kurt Kinnear, he does a lot of podcasts on just like leadership, and he's super good. I don't know if anybody do you watch him? No. Or listen to him? He's super good. Like, if you're really into leadership and just like values, he's on Podbean. So the episode that I had listened to was Integrity and Leadership. And something that he said was, in regards to leadership, if I do it, then they'll do it. So ultimately, when your organizational culture is at a low, it goes back to your leader. So if I see my leader embezzling money, I'm going to think it's okay to embezzle money. And if I see my coworkers, committing time fraud, I'm going to think it's okay. But ultimately, that goes back to how organizational companies or organizations are ran based off of who runs them. So you can really apply that to any part in your life. I think that when it comes to organizational health, leading with integrity, no matter what position you're in, is how you can foster a positive work environment. And that is it. Thank you.
I sorry, I laughed a little bit because you said podcast man. I was like, what's a podcast man? That sounds like a great job title. But I liked it. You pulled in resources from so many different places. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And I think culture is a lot of what we're talking about. Like company culture is one of the core tenets of what organizational health is all about. It recognizes that culture is this multifaceted, ever-changing, dynamic thing. And it's hard to pin down, but it's really important. I was talking earlier, but Reed Hastings has a great book. He's the CEO of Netflix. He's a really great book. I'd encourage it because I think you mentioned you like books a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's called No Rules Netflix, the Culture of Reinvention. It's a really fun, interesting book. He's a great writer. And one thing he talks about in that book, pertaining to culture and really alluding to a lot of what you discussed, is in an organization, who gets hired and who gets promoted is your culture. That's who you are. Not all companies will admit that, but they might have a really beautiful MVP, like their mission, vision, and values. Like, wow, they're inspiring. They have these great messages, and like it's so beautiful. They're trying to like be world changers, and then they're promoting like, you know,
Toxic
these,
workplace culture.
yeah, like these toxic, very power, hungry individuals that might abuse and take credit for things that aren't theirs, and I don't know, commit like different types of error or fraud like in their workplaces. That's what you value. If that's what you're promoting, that's who you're hiring, that's who you value. That's your culture. So I liked this in the sense that you're drawing attention to that, right? You're bringing the awareness to this is what health means in an organization. This is what culture is in an organization. So I would really recommend that book. I think it would be something you would just personally enjoy. But I think it pertains to organizational health, and I think specifically it pertains to us in organizational health. I was very, we get to speak to culture. We get to participate in that. So thank you. Appreciate it. Good job.
Well, hello, everybody.
Hello.
Am I not able to do the numbers? So I didn't bring up on the screen, Dr. Fuller.
Sorry.
Am I not able to do like for the review with the notes if it's on the share screen situation?
That's a good question. You might have to download it to be able to do that.
You might be able to change the display settings.
Oh, maybe. Could you
What
change
do?
it? Can you change
The display's duplicated right now, so if you change it to extend
Do you wanna complain with that situation?
Windows P.
Where is this? What's happening?
Windows P is the keyboard shortcut.
Alright. So then I do.
Extend, I think. Is that right? Yeah, sure.
I don't know what to do there.
If it's on that view and you go to like presenter mode, it might achieve what you're hoping for. Potentially.
So, how was everybody's weekend?
Is that when you can like drag it?
That's how it should work. You might be able to drag your notes over to the other screen on the desktop.
Do you still have it on extend or no?
No, I put it on PC only and now I have nothing. It's a black screen over here.
Oh.
Maybe change it to
Do
extend.
it, yeah, put it back to extend and then try to drag it.
And now it's just completely black.
One more.
Let's see,
One more down.
one more down.
Extend.
And then try to drag that, like, that window.
This.
Yeah, either all the way to the left or all the way to the right, and see if it ends up on your screen in front of you.
No. Oh, wait. You're a genius. All
But now
right.
open your other one back up because it's gone. It minimized it.
There you go.
And then full screen.
Dorian, do you wanna use my laptop and like read notes off of another laptop?
Is this gonna do something? Okay, I think this is fine. Maybe, right? Yeah. Okay.
Got it?
All right.
Yay!
Nobody's tech savvy up here. All right, I'm Dorian Rodriguez. We're gonna be going over kind of the ripple effects of organizational health and kind of the impact. We'll go over becoming the change, my experience at a culture accountability company as an account executive, and kind of their path to addressing organizational health and how they went about their change, as well as making the changes. We'll go through their steps process and what they kind of implemented, and then we'll wrap it up. So first, we're going to talk about becoming the change. So for about 2.5 years, I worked for a company called Partners in Leadership, and they had developed a process that promoted organizational health. These concepts addressed our clients' organizational needs and typically stayed on one track. You can see there are tracks, but it looks kind of like puzzle pieces. So if I say second, third piece, that's what I mean, these tracks. So some organizations chose to stay on one track, and some did choose to do the other ones to see kind of how they could be broken down and implemented into their everyday processes. So the gaps pertain to developing leadership skills, the changes within the workplace culture, and clearly defining the key expectations and ways to boost the overall morale of the company. So as we learned this week in our readings, there needs to be a clear path to getting clear results within an organization. So we'll go through these steps and see how we're going to make some ripples so we make our changes. So this first, the first track was the self-track. And that's the first part of kind of that starts in the ground, and where we want to go, where it's more of the inside ripple. It's pertaining to the people within the organization. So this process was taking accountability for one's personal growth. So this left room for your leadership development, for you to be innovative and ways to structure your plan. So the idea was to always look at a problem and go through this process. So they had a whole workshop, and that was built around each track. So each individual partner, they were called the clients, they were able to have their own personalized guidebooks that showed the different feedbacks and see how they would measure on the self-track list, which was computer generated. So the first step was see it, and that's more of you seeing the issue and not doing the below the line thing of, well, okay, it's not my job, where of course that's the easiest thing to do, but that's not actually contributing to the organization, organizational growth or your personal growth. And so then the next step is going to be own it. So that's when you're taking accountability for this thing. Yes, it might not be your job, but instead of doing the finger pointing, well, he's supposed to be doing that, that's really not on me, or actually I have somewhere to go, you're taking more accountability for these processes. And then the next step you go into is solving. So you're going to address the issue and find out what it is in the organization that could be developed. And of course, as human beings, we tend to go below the line and do the finger pointing and the comparisons, but the important thing is not to remain there below the line and to come above the line to get to your final, to your final thing, which is to solve it, and then to do it, to implement those changes that you have your attention. So instead of covering your tail, finger pointing, ignoring and denying, or saying it's not my job, or confusion, or just wait on your manager or supervisor to tell you what to do. You're being proactive and trying to find your place within the organization and contribute to the overall health of the organization. The next piece was called the culture track. And so this one focused on individuals' feedback and the experiences they had within the organization. It really focused on the culture change. So in this step, it allowed individuals to frame their experiences. So if they had an issue, like we were saying with HR, we're like, okay, well, this is what I had, this was my interaction, and this is the belief that was formed, this was disappointing, I feel like I'm alienated. And then you come above the line and you're saying, what can we do to move past this and to get back into the flow of addressing what needs to be done in the organization? So we're addressing the culture track here and finding ways. And these little books, they would have like New York bestseller or whatever, and this would accompany all the different tracks that they would have. So it's pretty cool. And then lastly was the others track. This one was more for the org leaders. So if you can you read that? Yeah. So right here where it says the outer ring is establishing expectations. Once leadership establishes these expectations, that's kind of the key to everyone falling in line. So we're working all more towards one goal. So establishing expectation also allows for organizational transparency and a common goal to work towards collectively. Once leadership establishes the key roles, it's important to find ways to initiate the conversations around accountability within the company. So if you notice, there's no start point or end point to this outer ring, because we can leave that to leadership to approach the conversations in different ways and find the gaps where their employees are experiencing a decline in their org health. So if it's in communication, that's one way to go in and exit that, or find the key expectations and how they align, and if they align with the principles within the culture. Within the organization. So the changes we want to see and create, as well as the ripple sent throughout the organization, overall will impact the organizational health. What we choose to do today in our roles as IO practitioners, and the changes we'll illustrate within our organization will impact the manner in which organizations operate in the future. So I just think that was pretty neat to like wrap all that in and to kind of see the steps of how these things can work. Where our reading, or for the McKinley reading, they were saying there was a recipe and there was one component that may be essential to the development of org health. And it's kind of like these paths where you can just take one of these components and focus in on bettering the organizational health. And that's it.
Nice. That was very professional. So this was the organization you worked at previously.
Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't until I was doing this project, I was like, this is some like really useful information. They really should have implemented a lot of the values.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they end up having to change their name. So I'm like, oh, it's fine that they can change their name.
Yeah.
It was kind of because of me, but it was good.
Yeah.
They
this was-
implemented good change in that company.
It was very appropriate and specific to like your content, right? This week's material, right along those lines of doing it. So I appreciated that. I liked the material was really well presented. I think it was nice to have the professional side of it. Like, this is what your articles and material talked about. Here's what it looks like in practice.
Right.
And I think it's really valuable to see. I know we talk about it here, but how crucial agency is. And that's a key tenet of what you were talking about. Getting above the line. That's agency. Like you see it, it's, that's not my job.
Yeah.
I'm gonna complain about it. I don't want to do anything about it.
Right.
That's a lot of work. It's hard. It's not my job. But to actually see it, and what was the next step? To
See it, own it.
own it, right? And then do it, right? Like it was part of that. So I liked the process, the breaking down of a complicated issue into like, you see it, that's part of the process. Great, that's a good first step. Now you need to like take some ownership and say like, I'm gonna be involved. I'm gonna take agency in this thing in some way. Maybe it means just reaching out or providing some resource to my manager. Maybe they aren't aware of this is happening or that this is an issue. Or that I have a keen perspective into what the issues are at this level that different levels don't see, and I can maybe provide a solution because they have no idea this even exists or that this hurdle or barrier is present for many people. So I liked the agency, and I think there's a lot to be said for that in terms of what it means for organizational health, and then to be a participatory member in organizational health. I appreciate that too. Thank you for contributing that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anushka. So I'll be talking about the benefits of a healthy workplace. So the question is, what is a healthy workplace? A healthy workplace is one where the managers and the workers and the employees come together to and work to improve the health, safety, and the well-being of all the employees, and which will in turn sustain the productivity of the organization. So how can we play a role in that? So first thing is leadership commitment, where the leaders will continuously communicate with the will communicate to all levels of organization, which and work on the health program goals. So employees will be given support by managers and supervisors of committee members. Developmental workplace champions, where the champions will take out 2 to 8 work hours every month and will work on well-being of the employees. Lead by example, which means that leader can model the behavior that they want to see in their teammates. Encourage co-workers and colleagues to participate. Understand the needs of employees, where the organization give out the baseline rewards which are sufficient and fair to the employees, and create a health plan to address the needs of the employees. And when we put all of this in practice, it will be eventually beneficial to the employees in terms of improved fitness, health and lifestyle, improved work-life balance, improved morale and engagement, reduction in stress, and enhancement in the relationship with the co-workers. And having a healthy workforce will in turn be beneficial to the organization in terms of reduction in absenteeism, increased benefits and perks, enhanced recruitment and retention, and enhanced reputation. Ending with a quote, we need to provide the means for employees to make healthy lifestyle choices and make the choices easy ones. Thank you.
Can you go back like 2 slides? Yeah, good, this one. What did you like most about this presentation?
But I was way more confident than the last time. Like I felt better, and
That's good. Seems like you enjoyed it. You smiled and laughed a lot, although that could be a nervous reflex, but hey, I'll take it, right? That's a good one. Of all the things to do if you're nervous, smiling and
I was
laughing.
almost about to give up.
You got it.
Yeah.
You did great. You did really well. Especially like, how many people can give a presentation in their non-native language? Yeah, no hands went up. I mean, there are 3 of us, right? Very few, that's amazing. That's really amazing. I'm super impressed. Yeah, it's good. It's really nice. I think the more you do something, the better you're going to become at the thing, whatever it is. So I think in practice for you in presentations, you have to start somewhere. And the thing that you maybe will find easiest to talk about are the things that we know the most about. I know for Annette, that's like outdoor adventure, which I appreciate, right? Like it's gonna be something that just, yeah, right? Like if it's some crazy wild adventure, but it happens outside, she's got it, right? Like she's gonna tell us a story and have personal anecdotes. So for you, I would try and find those things that you have lived experience. And then put it in the presentation. Tell that story. It could be a lived experience in the workplace, but it doesn't have to be. It could be on a team, a sporting team of some kind. It could be on a school team or a group. You could tell a story about your consulting project and how that could be translated into a healthy work organization and what that means. I think you provide and have such a unique perspective because I know what it's like to be a foreigner in another country and a student in that place. I've lived that, right? I know that. I can see and I know the benefits of that because things that we perceive as normal and mundane and just like, yeah, it's just the way we do it. You might see as that's shocking. Like unbelievable, kind of crazy that they do this thing. So your unique insight is very valuable to us. You have things that you see that we don't see, which I would love to hear. I think that's the real contribution here because you can bring in culture and what is it like? Like, did you work at all in? No, okay. But you were a student. And so I think a lot of times what we translate to work life, we can see in the organization. That's our job when we're students. And that's your full-time job is being a student. So what is the culture like in different parts? I know there's a lot of different cultures, right, where you're from. There are many different places and different ways in which people groups and cultures operate. But for you as a student, what was it like to be in that place? Is there anything that translates to organization kind of health type idea? And that's what I would want to think about. That's what I would want to ask about. Because I have some exposure, some students in the past from India, and it was fascinating to hear, like, wow, really? School is like that there? That's amazing. It's so different than here. I really appreciate that insight. So think of ways in which you can just tell your personal story, your lived experience. Bring that to us and just say, here's what I lived. And you may not know about this. And I think you'll find it's much easier to talk about and maybe fun to share. And of course, we would all love to hear it as well. So be thinking about that, not just for this presentation in this class, but as you go through the whole program. Like, well, in India, we do it this way. Or in my culture, in my family, or my city, where I'm from, we do it like this. I really appreciate that, and I think we could all learn quite a bit from that. So just bring that when you can, if you can. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good job.
How do I see this? Okay.
Hit Windows. Hit it one more time.
Thank you.
Do you want to go from your laptop or no? Oh, yeah. Yes. But you might go to duplicate, like one more down, and then you'll have an easier time of it. Yeah. Because then it comes up on that screen too. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. It's fine. I'll just click through. I wanted to give some of my, first of all, my name is Alina, and I wanted to give some of the reflections that I had when it came to humanitarian work psychology. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about my experiences. So this has kind of been my journey. So starting with my undergrad, I went to become a teacher. I was super interested in education. And when I did that, I came across just a ton of theology that really resonated with me. As we know, one of Dr. Iverson's favorite books, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, was something that really spoke to me. But I found that it was kind of limiting in the sense that it was doing the type of social justice change that I was interested in, but on a small scale. And so I love the idea of education and things like that, but it was too kind of narrow for me. So raise your hand if you've seen Insecure on HBO. So as you know, the organization that Issa worked for called We Got Y'all, I love the life story that they told with that, and that unfortunately, humanitarian work and social change work in the nonprofit sector can be a little bit problematic. Whether it's paternalism or white saviorism, there's things and elements that I don't love about the field that I'm in, but I think it comes from a good place, but it could be a little bit of problematic. And so where I'm at now is, and my journey is not done, but I really like the graphic on the far right. And this is how I think about the work that I want to do now. It says, I don't want to work hard. And for somebody that has really placed my identity in being a hard worker, being the oldest sister, I would have not liked this graphic a couple of years ago. But I don't want the work that I do, I also don't want to oppress myself through the work of social change and social advocacy. So I like some of the things. I want to work meaningfully, sustainably. I want to work powerfully, and I want to work together, meaning I don't want to do this work alone. And that's what I love about humanitarian work psychology, is that it calls us to kind of be a network in the work that we do. So before I get into some of the critiques of IO psychology, I wanted to talk about honestly, I would call it the beauty and the opportunity. And so for me, what attracted me to IO psychology in general is this opportunity to basically fight oppression is something that is core to who I am. And instead of, again, doing something on a micro scale, whether it's in the classroom or in a nonprofit organization, I want to do it on a bigger scale. And for us in IO psychology, that is doing something at the organizational level. And that's beautiful. But as we've seen in some of these discussions we've had in the cohort is sometimes it's not, it doesn't seem to always be working out the way that we want it to. And so whether we get critiques of DEI or we have fatigue on this topic, we know there's something there. We know that there's change that needs to happen, but it's not always a smooth process. And so one of the readings that really spoke to me was basically they called for a reconstruction of IO psychology overall. And then it should be centered on marginalized and oppressed groups. This really resonates with me. I think that if you love something, which I'm coming to the place with IO psychology, you should be able to critique it. And so just real quickly to run through some of these critiques. The concept that IO psychology can uphold the status quo. As we know, a lot of the research and data can be ethnocentric. The lack of like indigeneity and multicultural knowledge. Several of us have touched on that in this class. Something that really stood out to me is the idea that like the scholarship and the practice of IO psychology is we're more so trying to get like those that are oppressed, we're trying to like lead them to a pathway of being more like those who are not oppressed. Well, I think it's good to help people. It's like, do we stop and question why is it that they're oppressed in the first place? Like, what are the mechanisms that got them to that point? So these are the questions that came to my mind as I was doing the reading. We're not going to answer these all today, nor do I have the solutions for you all, but I just thought it was important to reflect. So like, who is served by IO psychology and who is not? To what degree is the status quo challenged or not by IO psychology? And this really stood out to me. So do you think that humanitarian work psychology should be its own discipline of IO, or should IO just be like fundamentally humanitarian? So to conclude, I am going to open up this question and I would love any of y'all's feedback. How do you envision incorporating justice and anti-oppression in your future IO career?
I think that something that I really just want to say, like, I love your whole presentation, but something that I've had to learn is that it's not my place to educate people. And I can be a part of an environment that like is performative, but at the end of the day, if they're not going to be there for me and understand me, like, I just have to accept that and like stay true to myself. So I think that like something I really want to do, like I want to do DEI, but not in the sense that it's helping educate these people. I want people to realize like, hey, this is what you need to do to educate yourself. I can tell you like some things that are my experience, but a lot of the stuff that people experience that are like Indigenous or BIPOC people like isn't factual based. It's all perspective based in their own thing, and just having place for them to hold those experiences, I think really fosters a good environment.
Yeah, I love that. And that's like when I was saying, like, I don't want to be involved in my own oppression to the sense that like, I don't want to feel like I have to save the world, because nobody can do that. And that's not fair to us to feel like we have to like kind of have that burden. So I totally feel you want to share. Anybody else want to share? Yeah.
I think, yeah, going off of what Melanie's saying, there's a very delicate balance, like in the therapy room, of being like a learner of somebody's unique like worldview, and it differs from your own, but also like taking your own, like empowering yourself to go out and like educate yourself. But like, okay, these may be like, this may be what the literature says and what yada yada, but like, what do you say? So like, it's taking that initiative, but also being like a humble learner, but not expecting them to like teach you all about what it's like to be them, because that's putting the ownership on them and not you. So it's a very unique, interesting, nuanced balance, I would say.
Thank you so much, Chandler. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you all.
Great job with your interaction. Like, I think that's commendable. Of course, topically, content-wise, material, presentation, style, all of that was great, even given the technological challenges that is this classroom. I think it was really wonderful for you to engage and participate so well with the audience as well. And I think that's a skill that of course you have, and I really appreciate to see you use. I think you have a very unique and wonderful way of facilitating other people in an environment.
Because I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah, you're good at it. You're really good at it. I can see that's a refined skill that you have. But I think beyond teaching, that's a transferable skill. That's a way in which you can operate in a room I don't know about anyone else, but I feel like if you're the one leading and instructing the room, I feel really safe. I feel like I'm in good hands, I'm well cared for, and everybody here has equal opportunity to speak up and voice, and you're gonna respect and appreciate that and lead that tone in a way that enables everyone to participate. That's not common, that's not everybody. So I just wanna recognize that in you and encourage you in that way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. At least we're safe. Feel free to get started. I'll catch up whatever I miss on the YouTube. I'll be right back.
Just finish it.
Thank you. This is a trick I set up, I don't know.
He's watching through the YouTube right now. Let's go. Catch up on the YouTube.
This is pretty dark.
The content's
So I was reading through the McKinsey Quarterly article, and it was really interesting. It reminded me of this intervention that I did as part of my consulting practice, Overcome the Ambiguity Consulting, Inc. And no. For the sake of the next 5 minutes, it is. And I was engaged by this academic organization to come do an organizational health intervention for their IO psychology cohort. So in this slide, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about myself, my expertise in this field, some background on the problem, the student requests, the leadership concerns as it pertains to organizational health. I'll talk a little bit about senior leadership, what areas they decided to invest in regarding their organization, the cohort, and then the results. And our content today is going to be divided into 4 parts. Each will be described with perfect clarity. If you don't like ambiguity. So a little bit about us. Since 2022, September to be exact, we have brought clarity to academic cohorts throughout the Inland Empire, mostly just CBU. We specialize in organizational health interventions in academic environments. We passionately advocate for healthy academic environments to be filled with guidance and clarity, right? We empower students to overcome unjust academic environments filled with ambiguity. It's just not fair. So that's what we specialize in. So I'm a 3-month expert at bridging the gap between ambiguity and clarity. A little bit of background. So what was the problem? The problem was senior leadership noticed that students in the cohort were struggling to embrace the program's vision for ambiguity, right? This was contributing to frustration and self-doubt about their ability to become more ambiguous. They didn't know, like, do I have it in me? Am I able to become more ambiguous? So the student request was clarity. That's all they wanted, clarity. What was leadership's concern? They were concerned that slowing down and providing clarity would take away from the intangible benefits that were invisible to the students. And they were worried about distracting students from other mission critical priorities of achieving more ambiguity. So they were worried that slowing down and providing clarity would take them away from their mission critical objectives of the program. And so what did we do? Them being data, researchers and loving the research, they said, wait, before we decide that this is a problem, let's actually go back and listen to the student testimonials from previous years to see what they say about the program. And do they even consider it ambiguous themselves, or is this just a unique cohort that's just complaining too much? And the data showed that 100% of the student testimonials described the program as ambiguous. So the data was conclusive in that regard. And so I met with senior leadership. I sat down with senior leadership. One of the two leaders of this cohort is Nathan Iverson. He's the president and founder. As you can see, he's got multiple skills, but he really is off the charts with passion. That's the one that just scored on all metrics. And the other key leader was Dr. Josh Fuller, who's the Chief Ambiguity Officer of the cohort. And as you can see, he scored off the charts with ambiguity. That's just like his forte. And so I met with these lovely gentlemen and we talked like, what are we gonna do? The data shows that this is objectively an ambiguous program and the students need some assistance here. And so we discussed 4 areas that research suggests to invest in. First, you gotta look at the performance culture. What do you want your culture of the cohort to be for your students? And they identified leadership factory. That's what they want this to be. They want to be an organization that drives performance by developing and deploying strong leaders, supporting them through coaching, growth opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So once we identified the performance culture, then we had to address what type of mindsets need to be cultivated with the students in order to get them on board. And at first we looked at what are the behaviors that you guys are seeing above the surface that are causing this alarm. And they was like, we're getting so many concerned requests for clarity, so many requests for clarity on assignments. But below the surface, they had to take a step back and say, what are the values, beliefs, needs, mindsets that are driving these requests for more clarity on the program, the assignments, et cetera. And below that was, students wanting to be academically excellent, right? Fear of failure or the unknown, need for organization, managing assignments, on a timely basis. So they really dove into addressing the mindset so that they can help shape and cultivate those student mindsets, orient those mindsets to the performance culture that they were looking for. And one of the ways that they were going to bring about this change was by building a committed team. So they needed to identify some core influencers within the cohort. And they wanted to identify 3 influencers. They didn't know exactly who it was going to be. They just knew it had to be all girls because research came out in 2011 from Beyonce that said girls run the world. And so they just knew that that's what it had to be. And then they wanted to create feedback loops by doing weekly classroom check-ins and check-ins with the cohort influencers. So who are these influencers that they selected? Well, there were 3. They chose these 3 based on unique influencer abilities, student leadership, student advocacy, student feedback. Jency's so busy gathering feedback right now, she didn't even make it to the conference. She's just out there gathering feedback to pass along to leadership. But they met with these influencers, got their feedback, got their input, advocacy for the students. And you can see here, I cite my research every slide, Beyonce. So here were the solutions that the influencers and leadership worked on. They said, hey, we really need an example of an executive summary. I think that would go a long way in bridging the gap between ambiguity and clarity. And so they met in the middle there, and we got an example. And then, and they said, extra credit, just throw it in there. It's not gonna help them in the long-term play. It'll just makes everyone happy. You'll get some goodwill, so we got some extra credit. And then they said they need a student partner. So we got an awesome TA in Stanzi, who is the key individual helping us bridge the gap between ambiguity and clarity. I mean, in case you forgot, a partnership is a formal arrangement by two or more parties. Just don't What was the feedback from the students? Well, the feedback, here's a few quotes. I really like this one on the bottom right. I've been wanting an executive summary example for so long. I feel so seen now that it's been like Lance up. I mean, it went a long way. The students loved it. What were the organizational results? Well, they skyrocketed in ratings. Like, they're a top program now because the feedback was so outrageous. And it just, is another example of the research that shows that organizations that invest in organizational well-being demonstrate tangible performance in as little as 6 to 12 months. Yeah. So this is the only serious slide that I have on my whole thing. If you guys want additional resources on organizational health, Patrick Lencioni is a master at this. We read some of his stuff a few weeks ago on Teams, I think it was, where we talked about vulnerability-based trust. But if you want extra reading, this book, The Advantage, focuses all on organizational health, and he's just a credible author and speaker that has pretty much dedicated his career to this topic. So on a serious note, if you guys are interested in this and want some more reading, that's a great resource. With that, thank you very much. Hands up. I don't know how to sign out.
Do I have to respond to this? No. This is so fun. I really appreciate it. He did warn me beforehand that he was going to give a presentation that was humorous. He didn't warn me what it was about, but I love it. It was really fun, really interesting, and I think a great way to communicate some of the insights derived from this particular course on this particular semester. I've asked you to jump through many hoops that I have not asked any other cohort to do before. So well done in that. So that was really nice to be able to pilot new things, try new things, and I appreciate your willingness and growth opportunity in the exploring of what it means to do an executive summary for a regular.
Still no idea, FYI.
Still winging it.
Still
waiting for you to show us that example.
just trying it. No, that was great. I appreciated that. That was really fun and a great way, I would say, for you to know your audience. That was a great example of know your audience. Humor is a very difficult thing to accomplish. And for those that speak another language, it's one of the most difficult things to translate. Humor does not translate. It is infinitely complex to do. And so to be able to be funny, to be able to get people to laugh, means that we understand something at a level of which it's hard to even, for me to even describe. It's a very deep depth of understanding and knowledge and shared knowledge so that we both get it, right? Like all parties get the joke, that they understand that there's something humorous here. Because I know, I don't know for you, but I know for myself, when I've prepared a presentation of some kind that has some humor in it, I'm always worried. I don't know if this is going to land. I don't know if this is actually going to be funny because it requires such a depth of knowledge or such a shared understanding in a depth of knowledge that it's a risk, right? You're taking a risk. So I appreciated that you took this risk. It was really fun. Your description of these core members there was very great. I don't know who those were, but even the descriptions of the student representatives I thought was really good. and your ad lib of Jency being so committed to student feedback that she's even occupied doing that now. That was really fun. So great example of incorporating humor in a presentation and knowing your audience really well, that they're gonna get it, that they have the shared experience and shared knowledge of this particular, time in life, this moment. So I thought that's a really fun example of that. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm really worried for like student evaluations.
No.
You're like, Dr. Fuller's nice and all, but I still don't know what his class is. Am I really that ambiguous? Well, with next semester with statistics, zero ambiguity. No ambiguity at all. Very clear.
No ambiguity, no extra credit though.
Yeah, no extra credit. It's,
one class we needed
yeah, it's a different endeavor, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's very hard to follow. Anyway, so my name is Angelica, and today I will be presenting on the impact of organizational health. So what is organizational health? Kind of like rephrasing my definition up on there. It's the capability of a company to develop and communicate a business strategy to their employees and keeping them well engaged so that they can just increase their profits, really. So I will be focusing on McKinsey's Organizational Health Index. It's kind of, they came up with like 9 critical health outcomes, and then within those 9, there's like 3 main categories. So have up on there execution, alignment, and renewal. Execution would be like building a leadership team and then coming up with or answering some key questions like who they are, or like who the company is, what they are doing, and how they will successfully implement this business strategy. Alignment is just kind of like giving the employees the direction they need to then implement the strategy, kind of like having that foundation of the execution, who needs to do what, and just the organization's mission, really. And then renewal is the organization's understanding of this business strategy. Essentially, it's the internal environment, such as the employees, and then the external environment would be the customers and the clients of that company or organization. So here I have like the diagnostic framework. I kind of color coordinated it. So I have the kind of like the salmon color. It would be the execution, which is accountability, capability, coordination, and control, and motivation. The only one I didn't really like is the coordination and control, just because like that control part, they're not really controlling the employees. It's just kind of like telling them like what the strategy is. And then alignment would be going down. So that's direction, leadership, and work environment. Direction again being that guidance, the work environment being the culture and the values of the company. And then going across, we have external orientation, leadership, and innovation and learning. So it's just kind of, again, the understanding of what they need to be doing, innovating, creative ways to implement those strategies, kind of like keeping it consistent. And I do want to emphasize leadership is in 2 of those. So we have it in alignment and in renewal, but I think it's like in all 3, because without leadership, you can't really do much because you need someone influencing the employees, etc. So it's just kind of like a measure of the organizational elements that drive the financial performance. So McKinsey had like these recipes for success. In the articles, it stated that it's really hard for a company to have all 4, but it could at least have 1 to then kind of make an impact. So I talked about Leadership Factory, just kind of enabling top talent already that they have and having them go through formal training and coaching so that they are more or well established. And then we have the Market Shaper, who is very customer focused, very has the agility to then be competitive competitive to other companies because they're like customer focused, marketing, advertising, and then the continuous improvement engine, which talks about empowering employees at all levels and not like top to bottom or not bottom to top, which is kind of like targeting all of them. And then talent and knowledge core, which kind of was really relatable to me. My key takeaway from that one would be like a token employee, which is like the influencer of the organization or the specific level. And so for me, at my job, my trainer became a lead a couple months after I started. So whenever there is like a change in the company, she comes to me and then kind of tells me to tell everybody else. And although like I appreciate like the value that I hold in the company and like the acknowledgement that I do influence my coworkers, like sometimes it's not well received. And they also tell me like, well, you're not even like getting paid as a manager, so like why are you doing this? I'm like, oh, you're right, like I'm not a lead, like I shouldn't, that's not my job. So yeah, like I like my job, don't get me wrong, like I love my coworkers, but it's not like my place. So it's kind of, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. And then so I need to pass out like this assessment that I found on the internet. And so it's just kind of like an assessment of your organization. And I will give you like a couple of minutes to look over. Well, anyway, so I took this assessment earlier and I scored at 61, so like I barely made that cut. If you scored between 86 and 100, congratulations, you love your job, you're thriving, you have a really healthy work environment. If you scored between 61 and 85, we're struggling. So I kind of wanted to give this assessment out if you want to take it right now or later, just kind of like as a reflection of where you're at with your current job position, or if you worked with a previous company or organization, kind of like what you would like to see or like where you would like to work, and that how that organizational health of that company can affect your own mental health. And so if you scored 60 or less, you're suffering, and I would recommend you to quit if you can and find another job. Because really, it all kind of adds up to mental health and like your well-being. So if the organization isn't really focusing on their health, like they don't really care about their employees. So that's like the QR code if you want like the total, like the assessment. And then some key takeaways is the organization has the ability to create a common vision, execute it effectively, and then renew itself through innovation. Health is something that you can see and feel within your organization. So if you don't feel like you have that, just reflect on it. And then a healthy environment increases productivity and growth and reduces counterproductive behavior and turnover of employees. And like this quote that really stood out to me by the World Health Organization is, health is a state of complete physical and mental and social well-being, and not merely the absence of pathological balance and others. Thank you.
One, your sweatshirt is really cool. I like it. It's like a Patagonia, but Riverside. And I just like, yes, that should be a thing. That should definitely be a thing. So it's very cool. I liked, the handout's nice. I would say just make sure that it's like, I don't know. It just looks blurry. Maybe it's my eyes. I don't know. Is it just me? A little bit blurry?
Yeah.
Just make sure it's like, if you're gonna do a handout, make sure it's like more clear. It's not terrible, it's still legible, but you know, you wanna like be crisp and you're professional. You wanna like give the material in a professional way. So it's very good, just make sure it's more clear. What was the other thing that you did? I really enjoyed. Your engagement with the audience is quite good. You're authentic and saying like, I scored a 61, so not great. If you scored an 86 or 100, you love your job, congratulations, well done, right? Like they got a good laugh, it was very nice. So I think that's nice. I would try and avoid giving any advice, like, hey, quit your job, they don't like you, they're not doing enough for you. And maybe reference, it's an opportunity for you to acknowledge and reference the other presentations that happened today. And I know it's not an easy thing to do, because you're taking new information and trying to incorporate that immediately in your own. But to say something like Dorian's presentation, where like you can have some agency, you see it, right? You own it, right? And you can like solve it and do something about it, right? If I remember all those 4 steps. So I was paying attention. So then you could reference like other people in their presentation of the agency in which we can operate. Like this is us, this is our field, this is what we can do. We are the agents of change here in the workplace. Like no one has more authority in this space than we do. And so by default, we can speak to and step into that space confidently because we're the ones that have the preparation and training to do so. So in that way, I would say like instead of quit your job, you don't want to be there, what can you do? Ask questions. What can you do in your organization that could lead to meaningful change? What conversation could you have? What intervention could you introduce? What tool could you supply? And by asking those questions, now you become the authority. You really come in with a lot of authority to ask those types. You don't have to provide the answer. You're just trying to get people to enter into that mental space. Like, join me in this space. Participate in this. Change your perspective. It's not about quitting each company that isn't perfect until you find the perfect one. It doesn't exist. It's about molding the places that we work in to be a little bit better because we're there. We have that authority. We have that ability. I'm not saying like, I'm just saying like what we can do. And I'm not saying you are like advocating for just like running away from your job or something. I'm just advocating for the pivot, right? Like that's the pivot that I'm talking about. That's that organizational health initiative, agency, drive, like what we can offer, what we can do. So I would articulate that. I love this as a tool. You're already doing it, right? The first thing that we need to be able to do is acknowledge that organizational health exists. Some organizations are healthier or more functional than others. With the acknowledgement that they exist, then we need to assess, quantify, put numeracy to it. And I love this. I think it's really powerful. So I really appreciate that you're already doing that. You're already doing what I'm talking about. I would just draw attention to it because we might not recognize or be aware of the powerful tool that you already introduced for us. So thank you for this. Even though I criticize like it's a little blurry, but whatever. That's a small thing, right? I don't want you to like get hung up on that. So I recognize it, and I think it's really valuable that you've already done the agency for us. You've already like taken a step. Like here's a move forward for you in your organization. Identify the health. Got to start somewhere. So that was really good. And then it's just what do we do next? How do we become agents of change? How do we do something meaningful in our workplace? I love that. Thank you. Good job.
Alrighty, hello everybody. Well, first I want to say the humor thing. I also am, it's a little bit of a humorous presentation, of course, but I was thinking about my experience with humor and presenting and everything, and I used to be presenting for preschoolers, and like, you would think I invented comedy to them. Like, I was like, oh yes, I'm so funny here. And then when I like started talking to like, or presenting in front of college students, it was like, maybe like less fart jokes and more like the good witty humor. Okay, but anyway, so I'm here to talk about America's healthiest and unhealthiest organizations to work for. And basically I just looked at the bigger corporations, the mega corporations that we might work for in the future, and what ones are doing it right now and what ones aren't, and maybe we can take some little tips and tricks from them. So in my research, I kind of found 6 key components throughout the different articles I saw. There was culture and leadership commitment, foundational components, strategic planning, communications and marketing, programming and interventions, and then reporting and analytics. And all of these were to make up either like the health of the organization or the perceived health of the organization through employees' eyes. A lot of these were through surveys, and I looked on Glassdoor and all the interviews and everything. So this is just a summation of what my research saw. But I need a little interaction from the audience, of course, as always. So I'm gonna ask you guys a question, and then I'm gonna need a thumbs up response or a thumbs down. And if you want, you can add a little with the thumbs down. But I'm gonna say, all right, class, what's it giving? And you're gonna have to be like, or, okay, yeah, can I have that? All right, class, what's it giving? Okay, good. Yeah. She says, okay. All right, so in our first company, General Electric, do you think this was a good organization to work for or a bad organization to work for? Class, what's it giving? All right, most of you are correct. Yes, it was one of the better organizations. This one I thought was so interesting. In their health benefits package, over a third of their US workforce has unlimited vacation time. This isn't all paid, but they trust their employees enough to do the work that they need and take off as many days as they want, because they give a lot of agency to their employees, which is awesome. And another benefit was I saw they had a 24/7 health hotline. So basically, if they had any conservations about whether they were feeling good, they always had that open opportunity to call, which I thought was really awesome. This is the Dish Network. Everybody say, all right, so to work for Dish, apparently I had no idea. I was a huge fan of Dish. I mean, my family loves Dish, but apparently it's so horrible to work for them. When I looked into all the reviews, it's a telecommunication company mainly, and they were having all these technical issues all the time. A lot of the employees didn't feel heard, and there was a lot of miscommunication between management and the expectation gap between the employees. And yeah, so that was a little bit disheartening to learn. All right, everybody, what about Twitter? Twitter is the next one. I got my information in March, really. Yes? No? Yes? What's it giving, class? What's it giving? Okay, most yes. True, yes. This is pre-Musk, pre-Mr. Musk. But this, so they had, one of the great benefits of working for Twitter was the great maternity leave. They offered up to 5 months for mothers and up to 10 weeks for fathers, which was awesome. And then they
Sexist.
They did have good LGBTQ inclusion for if there was 2 mothers or 2 fathers, they offered one of the parents, which was really cool. But then they also had an above average benefits package. But what I thought was really cool in the Glassdoor reviews was that Twitter felt, again, pre-Musk, that they were all contributing to a greater purpose. They felt that they were a part of the company mission, which I thought was so important in the grand scheme of things. And I thought for a mega corporation, that's a pretty cool thing to pull off. All right, next we got Amazon. What are we thinking, class? What are we thinking? Is right. Amazon, unfortunately, I mean, I think we all saw this coming. Amazon had it topped every chart of worst health and organizations. And of course, I'm like, the IO psychologist in me is like, why? Most of the Glassdoor reviews were from the warehouse workers, which there's a high turnover rate anyway. But there's also a high injury rate, and the workers claimed feeling isolated. And of course, this totally takes away from the dynamic in the workplace. If you're isolated, what's the #1 tool for job satisfaction? A friend in the workplace. Thank you, Dr. Iverson. And then there's also one of the things I found when looking at Amazon's kind of employee careers, for the warehouse workers, they aimed for short-term employees because they felt long-term employees got too angry with the company. I was like, wake up, Dr. Amazon, like that is a whole huge problem with your company. But anyway, Microsoft. What are we thinking, class? Absolutely, it was so good. Microsoft had easily one of the best reviews on Glassdoor from all the different employees. There was great pay. Average pay was amazing compared to everything else. But when I really looked at it, it was kind of like a college campus, the way they organized their stuff. There's social groups. They offer therapy. They offer all these discounts for all their employees. It was really, really awesome. But as I was thinking a little deeper about everything, I kind of started to wonder what the good organizations did that really separated it apart as part of like, if I was a person working for all these, why would it be such a big difference in everything? And I think the good organizations felt really human to work for. They embraced like the greater purpose. They embraced, or if they offered fitness or therapy, it kind of helped build your mind or your heart, as well as looking out for you as a human, just not just as an employee, which I thought was really, really cool in looking at all these. But those are my references, and thank you so much, everybody.
What's your assessment for Twitter post Musk?
What's it given?
There's a lot of like, I think there's not too much role clarity in this new era for the workers. But what I also saw was that they're like, the ones that do feel really connected felt like they are like still connected to a greater purpose, which is cool. Like it wasn't all negative. But I did see like, because some people just were like against Elon Musk in general. Yeah, but then some people were like, oh, but I'm helping shape the future, which is cool. Like this is a new era for Twitter anyway. So yeah.
It's interesting because you have this massive shift in an organization where people self-selected out in droves. And you're left with, I think the company culture at Twitter right now, I'm guessing, I'm not there, I'm not in the thick of it, but my guess is that it's actually quite good because everyone that was unhappy left. And you have now self-selected into their current ethos. And anyone that joins the company now knows what they're getting into now. So they're well aware. They're going to work very hard, long hours, but be a part of something that maybe has a greater purpose for them.
Yeah.
And shaping the future of communication, at least having an attempt at whatever it looks to communicate online in some type of semblance of free speech. And that's free speech as a whole another, like how you define that, what it is another thing. I was just curious because you had it up there, and I think there is an important caveat that you need to say is that the pre-Musk, post-Musk, it is a different place. It's a very different place to be.
Yeah.
And then what it is like to be there is probably very different as well. And for better or for worse, I don't know yet. I don't
Yeah,
know.
like I was trying to research and it was like lots of like different opinions, but I mean, that's part of it, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Your engagement with it was great, a lot of fun. You got us to like thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm curious, a show of hands, did anyone like get 100%? Like you knew you could nail it, pin it down? Well done, good job. I liked the pattern, right? Of like good, bad, good, bad, good. It was, eventually, if he gave us another one, we know it was gonna be bad. We picked it up. We picked up the pattern. So I liked that. I think the direct, I really like, and I think that the direct comparison with organizations was helpful in translating the content of the articles to what this is in a company. Like, apply this for me. What does this translate? I get all your highfalutin stuff, Dr. Fuller, that's great and all. What does it look like? Like, give me examples. And I love these examples. These were really nice, and I appreciate the legwork you did to go to Glassdoor and actually like get an idea, take the pulse of these places in March or in any time frame, like whatever it was, to get an idea of where these are. Because I think most people will remember better and have a deeper connection to the companies themselves than the articles we read. They're gonna remember like the good companies to work for versus the worst companies to work for, and maybe have an idea or some internalized understanding of why that might be in terms of organizational health, as opposed to just memorizing a McKinsey article or a journal article. So I appreciate the really clear understanding of what it is to put organizational health into practice. So thank you. Good job. I didn't get the memo on what we were gonna wear today, so.
I know, I was like, I wonder if we're gonna twin again today.
So today was the ugly sweater day for CBU in their program. Yes, well done, Society students. Did you see some pictures? There were some very ugly sweaters. We should?
I made mine.
Yeah, what? For real?
Yeah.
Oh, you win. You absolutely win. That's amazing. That's not ugly at all. That's a beautiful sweater.
Oh.
That's really nice. Did you see Dean Gustafson? Oh, she had a good one.
Videos.
She took a picture of everyone that stopped in the office. Did you?
Let's take one after class.
I agree.
And you guys do kind of match because you have the stripe in the middle.
Okay, well, we're trying.
Yeah, yeah, dark blue.
We're
Is
glad
Dr.
that we're
Everson
trying to-
wearing an ugly sweater? Is Dr. Everson wearing an ugly sweater?
No. He did not participate in the ugly sweater competition. Although I don't know if he got any sweet treats though. I got lots of cookies and stuff, so I think I won.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Jacob Ansari. And I'm gonna be talking to you guys about, guess what? Organizational health. Let's go, right? And specifically, its importance, and we're gonna hone in on a couple specific factors. So kind of a agenda or overview for the presentation. We love those, right? Table of contents. Well, we're gonna talk about the importance of organizational health, sometimes referred to as work health, OH. If you think of another phrasing for it, feel free to shout it out anytime. I'll be waiting. Oh, yeah. We'll talk about some predictors of organizational health, specifically honing in on a couple that I found to be really interesting. And then at the end, I'll ask about what kind of subtopic or part of organizational health matters to you. So be ready for that. Importance of organizational health. So I feel like it could be easy potentially for an executive or manager, whoever, to think about organizational health in kind of a wishy-washy way, right? Of kind of, it could be just like the virtue signaling, like, oh yeah, people love coming to work because we got bouncy balls and standing desks. When in reality, it goes beyond that. There are actual physical, tangible benefits from higher organizational health. We had some great content from Anushka earlier on that, as well as some others. So yeah, better performance first. Again, it's not just the feel-good stuff. A company performs better when they have higher organizational health. There's potential for growth. So in Angelica's presentation, she talked about kind of a survey where you can assess where your organization is at. If a company finds themselves on the lower end of that, there is a lot of potential for them to grow. They don't necessarily have to remain stagnant in there. It's can be fairly easily for them to jump up into that next category, going from bad to good to great, etc. And then, yeah, maybe a common misconception is an executive might make as well, thinking that, oh, maybe if we just make a ton of money and pay people really well, the organizational health is going to be good. When in reality, it's the other way around. Organizational health promotes those financial gains, as I kind of talked about in the beginning of this slide. Some predictors of O. There it is. I came across a really interesting article on the concept of mattering. So when I say that, what do you guys think that means?
Being a person, like being treated like a person.
Being treated like a person, knowledge, anything else? Purpose, yeah. That's kind of what, all those are great, thank you. That's kind of what it hones down to, is feeling that your work and your place within the organization matters, thus leading to mattering. Wow, what a jump. And that concept relates to both organizational health and employee success. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's connected to retention as well as promotion. So yeah, it's good for both the employee and the organization if someone feels like they matter, their work matters. And that can go beyond like roles, like you don't necessarily have to be working in a hospital saving lives every day for your work to matter. You can be filling paperwork out all day and your work or your connection to it can matter as well. And this bleeds into the kind of one of the subtopics from the McKinsey article of an indicator of organizational health, employee involvement. And then another topic, which, yeah, this shouldn't really come as a surprise related to org health, but leadership. And yeah, feeling that kind of tension between support and challenge from your manager, feeling you don't want to be kind of just walked all over. You want to feel supported, but you also want to have that challenge and be pushed forward, have goals set, etc. And we've learned all semester about the benefits of transformational leadership. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be a better leader in your situation if you lean more on that tendency. And then that question, I warned you guys, what matters to you? So thinking through all the different subsets and topics of organizational health, what matters to you guys? Like either when you're applying for jobs or yeah, kind of thinking through, we had a great list from Luke earlier of good companies to work for. What matters to you?
Something I didn't notice until my current job was the need for fostering an environment where people can ask questions and be open for like humility of like, hey, I messed up, like how can I do this better? Or can you give me constructive criticism? Because I realized in my serving job I don't have that. I don't want to mess up because then they mess up their schedules. But like with Turning West, they foster that environment where it's just much more productive and people are much more willing to give and receive feedback in a way that they know is constructive. So that's something I didn't know I needed until this job, which is cool.
That's great. Yeah. Anybody else?
I think benefits matter. I got cut off my mom's benefits. I'm 26 now. So like just, I got paid really well at my last job, but we didn't have good benefits. So like now that I'm job hunting, I'd rather take a better benefit package than higher pay just because like I go to therapy, like I like going to the doctors and not having to pay like a pretty penny. So I think that's really important.
Excellent. Yeah. Luke, I saw your hand up.
I think I like the personability part of a job, like making the job your own and doing things your own way in the job. And I think that's been emphasized a lot more now, and I'm in a job where that is not possible. So yeah, but I think that's you learn what matters to you in different workplaces too. So
great. Ken?
I really appreciate when senior leaders or managers will solicit the input from those that are at different levels of the organization and really listen and like maybe enact, you know, if it's appropriate, some of their suggestions and feedback.
That's great. Yes, Doctor.
To that point, maybe an extension of it would be like role models and mentors. I think the value in that, from my perspective, has increased dramatically in different environments where there's maybe an abundance of them, and then moving into a space where you find less, you realize like, oh, I didn't know what I had. That was an amazing place to be. And I sometimes hear that from students as well. When they move on to another place, the access to role models and mentors that are willing to pour into them changes. It's important.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. For the sake of time, we'll cut it there. Thanks for your participation. Thank you.
If anyone wants a lesson in like presentation callouts, I think that was it. I don't know how many other presentations you referenced, spoke to, mentioned, brought up. That was a great example of that. And I'm curious for those that when he mentioned your presentation, what was that like? Anushka, felt good? Angelica Superstar, you mentioned yours. Anyone else? I think he mentioned yours as well, Luke. All the
really good. He mentioned mine last time too, and so I was like,
It's always good.
Well, I love it because it's one of the, I think it's one of the most expeditious ways in which you can win over a group of people to you. And it shows a tremendous amount of respect for them as well. Like I was listening, I heard you, I've thought deeply about you, and I've then immediately put you into practice in my life. That speaks volumes to the kind of listener that you are and kind of person you are. So thank you for that amazing example. Appreciate it.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Claudia. I have a quick question. Do you guys like cooking?
Yes.
Yeah? I know we have to cook, but some of us might not like cooking. Okay, have you guys gone to a cooking class before? Have you taken a cooking class? Yes. Okay, well, have you guys given a cooking class? Okay, me either, but I'm gonna give you like a cooking class on organizational health. So, before we start off with our cooking lessons for today, we need to know what the 9 dimensions of organizational health are. So these are some of them. These are the 9. We just need to know these so we can start prepping. No? Okay. So the 4 recipes for success. So the first recipe we're going to be talking about, it's leadership factory, and then we're going to talk about continuous improvement engine, talent and knowledge core, and then market shaper. So for today's first recipe, we're going to start off with leadership factory. So leadership factory focuses on, so these 5 are your 5 main ingredients that you need for this recipe. You can alter it, you can add a little bit extra if you're feeling a little, spicy or something. If not, you can stick to this, that's totally fine. So leadership factory, it's developing and deploying strong leaders at all levels. So for that, an example would be like if you have like startup companies, or like if you have a sports team, that's like you're like creating a sports team. What do you need? You need a coach, right? So you need a strong leader to help direct and like train the rest of the team for success, right? If you don't have a good coach telling the players like, hey, like you guys need to do this, or whatever the case is, then you're not gonna win any games. You're not gonna be successful. You're gonna be like Mexico. No?
Oh, too soon.
Yeah, I know. I'm so hurt by that. So the second recipe. So continuous improvement engine. So again, these 5 ingredients, you need these. Okay. So what this is, it's involving all employees in drive for performance and innovation. So an example of that be kind of like, again, with the sports team, it's kind of like you want everyone to be successful. So it's like we're looking for success. So like you need to train, and you want all the players on the team to do well. You can't just have one person doing really well because of like in Mexico. You can't have the goalie doing all the work and then there's no one scoring. He can't keep blocking all the shots and then you don't have anyone scoring, which was the case in the World Cup. We didn't even score a goal. Anyways, okay, whatever. So you can't have them you can't have just one person doing all the work. So this kind of focuses on like having everyone just doing their best and just being successful. So it's not just focusing on one, but everyone. And then the third one, continuous improvement engine. Again, 5 different ingredients. And then this one's okay, so yeah. kind of mix them up. So this one, this one's supposed to be talent and knowledge core, which this one's attracting and inspiring top talent. So that's kind of like the recruiting for companies. So you know how you have like the MLS, like you have soccer teams that have like certain players playing all year round, but then they like recruit and like call like their best players to go to the World Cup, right? So they're not gonna call like, yeah, Abraham might be playing on the team, but Luke's like an all-star player, so we're gonna call Luke. Sorry, Abraham. Like we want success here, like that's our like goal. We're trying to win, so we're gonna call like the top talent. We're gonna focus on like like just recruiting like the best people. And then we have the last one we have is market shaper. So this one's shaping innovation via customer insights and external orientation. So this one, an example for this would be kind of differently. It would be kind of like how teams have different like they change up their jerseys, right? So they're always like changing like their away, their home jerseys, just to kind of keep it interesting and kind of like attract more like a larger fan base. Because if you have like team A with the same jersey for like so long, and then you have team B, which is like constantly like creating like newer designs, the uniforms a little bit better, prettier, like you're gonna want to go for or root for that team. I've done that in like football, like what team's playing, like what team do you go for? The team with the cuter uniform. So yeah, it just appeals to your eyes when you're watching the game. You don't know what the game's about. You're just watching it and I'm like, okay, I'm more attracted to the blue team. They have a cuter uniform, And then the orange team's just like, they're not even in competition. Like they stand no chance. Okay, so moving on. Does anyone know what this is? Apple. That's Apple Park. Okay, so we're gonna be doing hands-on cooking today now. Okay, so we have a problem. So Apple's a little sick, they need help responding to the increase of demand and development products. So what can we offer them as a solution based on the last 4 recipes we had? Market shaper. Can anyone tell me why?
Make them more attractive.
Yeah. So they're offering this much, right? For us to like give them a really good like recipe. So we're gonna go with market shaper. Why? Because so Apple kind of like they're always coming out with new products, and it's kind of like they want to stay ahead of the game. They want to be one of the top competitors. So what they do is they kind of they strive to be product innovators. So the market shaper. So they kind of they're responding to like demand and developing products. So if there's a high demand for like a new product, you got bored of the old iPhone. They want to come out with a new one. So market shaper, it's like, okay, what can we offer the audience? They want a new iPhone. Either they want a bigger phone, more cameras. That's what market shaper is. That's it. Thank you.
Good. That was very fun. I enjoyed and thought it was quite unique to come at it from a recipe book perspective. I thought that was really, it's fun. I liked it. It's clever. I would lean into that even harder. So you started mixing analogies and we started talking about World Cup and soccer. Say, cut that part out or just give that presentation, right? Whatever one you're gonna give that one. So with this one, I would say if you're gonna stick with the recipe book, talk about the ingredients in the, oh no. When you're talking about the strategy, when we're talking about like which players to pick or which things, and I thought, oh, that's a perfect example for talking about the ingredients. You want the freshest, best ingredients. So like, try not to switch analogies. It's best to stay in one and just double down on it, right? And say like, okay, we need the best ingredients. We need the freshest produce. We want the, you know, the highest caliber selections of meats or cuts that we can get. You know, whatever it is, right? That we want to procure the best supplies chain for like us to acquire, you know, the highest caliber talent, groceries, you know, whatever it is, right? Like to stay on top of that analogy. One thing that I would say is a really powerful tool that you used here, and then why I would encourage you to kind of double down on the analogy. When you're talking to a group of people that are fairly intellectual, like a high caliber group, management, upper level management, the best way to, one of the better ways to communicate with that group is with analogy. So if you're dealing with sophisticated thought, analogy is a really good way to communicate. It's respectful for their intellectual capacity and caliber, and it helps derive more insight, more cognitive engagement, and problem solving from that group of people. Instead of just, hey, A plus B equals C. That's a very low level formula. But now to say, think of your organizational health like a recipe book. Now we're talking analogy. Now we're talking more abstract. So using abstraction for your audience is really important, knowing that the audience is a fairly complex cognitive audience that are intellectual, critical thinkers. That's the appropriate time. That's the group of people to use it for. If you're just trying to speak to a group and their task is, you know, not to, you know, degrade it, but it's manual labor or any physical task. It doesn't require a lot of analogy or complex kind of cognitive thought. It's physically demanding. So speak more, less analogy and more explicit about like, okay, A plus B equals C in this regard, right? So that's how I would differentiate based on your audience. So in this case, you have brilliant people here that are all knowledge workers, very smart, intellectual people. Abstraction and metaphor is a great way to speak to that group. So I liked it for that. And I would say like, do it even more. Double down on those ingredients. Talk about the whole recipe book. Even provide like examples of putting these things in and really kind of try and live that example of the analogy. I liked it. I thought it was really good. I look forward to thinking, I'm going to think about that more. It made me like think more deeply about I just never thought of a recipe book with these, but it made sense. That was really cool. So thank you for that. Good job.
All right, good evening, guys. So I'm Will, and my presentation I decided to title Outperforming. I decided to go this approach really based off of the McKinsey article, things that I was pulling out of that, specifically pertaining to organizational health, where the purpose of organizational health is so that you can be a better version of yourself and a better version of the competition, so you can beat the other guy. So again, what I really took out of it was, how do we outperform? What does it mean to really outperform both yourself and outperform the competition? I really find it's a game of strategy and stamina. So just a really quick rundown of organizational health. Health of any specific business or entity effectively boils down to just the market, how it pleases its customers and or shareholders, and how well it holds up against competition. I'm talking about how it boils down externally. As we know, there's a lot of different internal factors that play into this, but what we see is how it basically plays out in the market, how happy customers and shareholders are, and how well it can go up against any type of competition. Obviously, if we see a company that just cannot cut it with competition, we're going to think, and rightfully so, this is not a healthy company. If we're a shareholder of a specific company and it continually is disappointing, we're going to think this is obviously not a healthy company. I would think they're going belly up. So healthy companies, again, externally, are characterized by their speed, their efficiency, by their speed, efficiency, and quality of their product or service, and their edge on competition. So looking at how this company performs, looking at how everything is addressed. Are they fast? Can they anticipate my needs? Are they quality? So can they get it done fast, and can they get it done well? And something that is specifically being looked at now per the research is, what kind of edge do they have on the competition? What's their hand up? So consistently healthy companies are almost always able to outperform the competition in one way or another. This is not a catch-all. This is not 100% of the time, but consistently healthy companies can usually find at least one way that they outperform the competition. And also success can be narrowed down to at least 3 main avenues. And this is the internal things that we're talking about: employee wellness, efficient growth, and goal setting. So I like to kind of think of employee wellness as like the nutrition and hydration of our outperforming strategy. This is what we need to keep ourselves going. This is like what we sustain ourselves off of. This is really what we need to stay just on our feet. So general wellness of a business relies directly on the general wellness of employees. Employees give the company the forward power and energy that it needs to compete. The employees, in the essence, as we all know, kind of are the backbone of this. So employee wellness, also as we all know from recent years, is not limited to just physical needs. Feelings of satisfaction, belonging, self-efficacy, agency, camaraderie, these are all necessary aspects of maintaining employee wellness. Essentially, employees want to feel seen, want to feel like they're cared for, and want to feel like they're useful. So healthy companies make an effort to engage all employees from the first floor all the way to the top floor. That's something specifically that the article linked below talked about. And they willingly make accommodations in order to keep the investment of human capital. They realize this is our bread and butter. This is what keeps us on our feet. We need to keep this around. We need to keep it healthy from the inside out. Efficient growth. I kind of thought about this as like drag reduction, or almost kind of like weight cutting, but that's not a good running metaphor. That's more like a wrestling metaphor. But drag reduction. So what are we doing to decrease our wind resistance? What are we doing to go forward faster? How can we get off of the starting line way faster, and how can we maintain that momentum? So in order to stay ahead of competition, healthy business has to ensure a smoother ride. Efficient planning for growth can add more velocity to an already healthy company's momentum. I included an already healthy company mostly because efficient planning, while it does help, it doesn't always make an unhealthy company immediately healthy. It can make them a little faster in the short term, but that's why you're going to need things like employee wellness and also goal setting. We'll get to that in a minute. So non-essential services, distractions, wasted manpower, and per one of the articles, counterproductive behavior. This is what we're looking at as things that can add drag to a company. What's slowing us down? We can be healthy, we can have great employee culture, we can have a great campus, we can have great commodities. Just, are there things that are holding us back? Are we signing up for too much? Are we biting off more than we can chew, more or less? Even if the company is healthy, it has too much air resistance to compete optimally. We're carrying just too much weight. Also, just in terms of efficient growth, constantly refining procedures, reinventing the wheel sort of, and many other things can all help a company become a lot more streamlined. This is something that we see in businesses, and it's something that we see in sports a lot as well. Things are constantly being remade. Uniforms, and one thing for like runners is shoes, constantly being remade. You know, you think of the shoe, it doesn't always think like it needs to be reinvented. It really does. Just to, again, add to optimal performance, we really need to kind of reinvent the wheel here. Finally, goal setting. I thought about this kind of as a stamina and mileage. Having been like an endurance runner myself for a while, I tend to think of this as almost, this is the end game. What are you doing to ensure that the end game comes out the way you want it to? It's almost kind of like a game of chicken towards the end of this, like at the end of a race, at the end of like, let's say a 7K race, you know, who's going to kind of give up first? Who's going to stop giving their 110% first? Is it going to be right before the finish line? Is it going to be in the last kilometer? Things like that. So companies that commit to addressing internal problems build up strength, and it allows them to become faster and more efficient at conflict management and problem solving. Again, this is thinking ahead. This is what could potentially go wrong here, or what is going wrong, how can I hop on it now? How can I get on it now so that it doesn't slow me down later and so that I don't get tired later? Less time cleaning up equals more time devoted to competing, more or less. Manipulating the environment as well, of a market or customer profile to this company's advantage or to an individual's advantage. It keeps a company perpetually sharp, allowing for more endurance. You're able to run faster when you know what's ahead, when you know what to expect, when you know you already have kind of an ace in the hole. Companies that make allowances for obstacles, unforeseen circumstances, mistakes, etc., are all able to compete better and stay healthy longer. Again, this gets back to the fact, if you know what is coming, if you know what to expect and you did the training to get up to this point, you have a much better idea of how you're going to perform. And that is about all I have. Thank you.
Great images. Really nice. Really nice, like professional images. They looked really good. I liked the analogy consistency throughout. It's really good. I thought that was well done. The reminder of the ability to translate these ideas to clear parallels in other domains. And I really appreciate the really diverse examples we have in this group to say it's like cooking, it's like sport, it's like, a company, it's like your own physical health, it's like all these other things. Because I think it broadens the understanding and the horizon for all of us to be able to consider our audience a little bit differently each time. And it gives us more of a repertoire, right? Like a whole basket of potential examples that we can give to an organization or a person or a company when they're asking for, or when you're talking about, whether it's organizational health or something else. If you know who the person you're talking to, or you could just simply ask them, what are you into? What's like your hobby? What's your favorite thing? And they say running. It's like, okay, organizational health is just like running. It's like this, and this. I like that because it helps translate this. It's one of the hardest things that we do is translate our work or the findings of others' work in our field to personally relatable, identifiable ideas. It's one of the hardest things that we do. And so when you have these explicit, really clear, common examples that we all have had experience with some physical endeavor, right? Whether it's running or something. You don't have to be an elite athlete or a triathlete or anything to be able to relate to what running is. Or like what cooking is, or like what anything else might be. So I appreciate that. I think it's really helpful and valuable for all of us to have a broader understanding of all the ways in which we can contextualize and relate this somewhat dense material. I don't think today is as dense as some of the other weeks into other relatable topics. And I think you did an excellent job, a really professional looking presentation and way to communicate that to a layperson, like someone that hasn't read the article, someone that doesn't know the material, someone that has never heard of organizational health. They could look at this and have a really good understanding of what organizational health is. Thank you. You did a great job. Thank you.
That is so weird.
Oh, you're trying to share it, but it's not going through?
Yeah, it's not actually sharing.
I think you have to go to the drive. That's how I found
Oh, the drive?
shared stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So I tried emailing it too and it didn't come through. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
Well, it was a little done.
Just look at us helping each other.
Trial and error. That's the only way.
There you go. Good call. Okay. Hi, my name is Adam, and similar to pretty much everybody except for Alina's presentation, I'm going to be talking about organizational health. why it's important, some of the characteristics of it, things of that nature. So the first off is why organizational health? And I think it's important to look at this from multiple angles. The first being from the business angle. These are businesses that we are going to be lending out our services to. And so from the financial standpoint, healthy organizations tend to outperform companies that are not healthy. And then from the people standpoint, which is the other part of the IO equation, the idea of working for a healthy organization acts as a layer of assurance towards how your time in the company will be. Similarly to how we alluded to earlier in other previous presentations, the advent of COVID, when COVID happened, it really changed the landscape of work and forced people to look inward on what they really want in a job. And going forward, just as the workers have had to adopt, so do the companies. And then why wouldn't we build on that idea of betterment? I think in every aspect of life, whether that be professional or yourself, the striving to always get better, it's healthy. And then this is just a statistic, but around 80% of companies that take concrete actions on health saw an improvement fiscally, so financially. So what is organizational health? In my definition of it, I kind of defined it, it's similarly to the future presentation, and it's a goal, the culmination of all of our research in this first semester, and a revolving door that we continuously try to open. And I think that that's something to look at. This isn't a stagnant situation. And that's something that I read in the article, like a one-liner that really caught my attention, was health is never at a static state. They drew parallels to the human experience to the organizations. And this idea that we're continuously going to evolve, and with that, there's going to be times where we're going to patch up things, and then there's going to be times where we improve, but with improvement also comes new problems, and we're going to work together towards patching that up, patching up. It's just a continuous cycle of always trying to get better. So what are some of the characteristics that define positive health in an organization? So good direction, leadership that expresses the views of the company very directly, innovation and learning, coordination and control. I previously to another previous presentation, someone said they did not like the word control. I kind of read it as like coordination and guidance. It was a little bit of a better term for what we're experiencing here. The capabilities of each and every worker that you hire, to know that they're just fit for the job. Motivation for both the company, the workers, everyone involved. The work environment, accountability, and then obviously the external orientation being the consumers and shareholders, things of that nature. So now moving on to the tactics to employ, the first being the leadership factory, which is a top-down approach where you hire people to move out the directive of the company. So if you want positive change, you put people in those places of power and hopes that it trickles down into every level of the organization. The continuous improvement engine, which is more of a grand implementation across the board throughout the company, at every level at the same time. The talent and knowledge core, which to me was more like a recruitment type of field where you're bringing in those people that share those newfound organizational values to help implement them throughout your company. And then the market shaper, which is largely a consumer type of mindset, to where they decide the direction the company is going to go. So key takeaways similar to actually Delora. I learned a lot from all the presentations as I do every week. But similarly, I also saw the parallels that are drawn from human beings and organizations throughout the articles. And another thing I like to highlight was the necessity for growth. And once again, that could be applied to both us and organizations. There's always a need for better. And it's because of this that I looked more inward towards the application of these articles, and how I understood them better was how do I improve myself, and that'll in turn improve people I work with. So food for thought, the last kind of thing we got going on here, is it got me thinking, if they compare organizations to human growth, can I use some of my experiences to explain why implementation is slow or show no signs of showing up at all. And the example that I'm going to give right now is actually my transition towards going into the field of industrial psychology. So originally, I was not going to go into industrial psychology. I wanted to do pharmacy, a very different field than this one. And initially, I had high trepidation towards the switch. And it was also the same reason why I wanted to join. It was actually Dr. Iverson. You know, he's a big bundle of energy and positivity. And that's a great thing, but it's also scary because I don't know if I could do that. That's the biggest problem with Professor Iverson. He seems like such a monumental figure, and I don't know if I can live up to that. So that was kind of the scared that I had in me at that point in time. And it got me wondering if companies also have that same fear of if they derive away from their original path of what worked, will things go down? And at least the optimism I have is for in the future is, at least on a personal level, my mindset has changed throughout the course of the semester. I used to operate on the belief that be content with what I have, but want more. That's always like the belief that I went throughout my life, but it has evolved since then. And it's looking for that continuous betterment of myself. And so a quote by John D. Rockefeller kind of summed up what I want for myself in the program, which is don't be afraid to give up on the good to go for the great. And I'm hoping that this decision ends up being a good one. So thank you.
Yeah, I liked the translation. Like a lot of your material that you presented on was, hey, we all know these are the things that exist, right? Very brief in those. And then it was all about translating that to, or synthesizing out of it, like kind of getting the marrow, like out of those articles. Like, what is the quintessential thing that they're talking about here? It's the human being, right, in the organization. It's recognizing the uniqueness of the people. It's like the internal health and how that affects others in your organization. Like how you show up is going to affect how others experience the day. And that's part of what health looks like in an organization. It's part of the culture of that place. So I thought that was a really astute observation, to be introspective at the same time of like taking in the readings for this week. I thought that was really nice. It was good. It was well done. And then and I appreciate the vulnerability, the insight into your own life about going from pharmacy to IO.
It's a very different experience. The change was crazy because from pharmacy, like at least in like all the classes, like biology classes, and then all my undergrad, I never really thought of how to even communicate with my cohort or because I would see them for one semester and I'm like, I'm never going to see them again. So it was a transition phase to come into the IO field, which you guys kind of outlined that these are also networkers, not just your cohort. And the utilization of the cohort is going to be instrumental towards your career growth. And so that's been a big change for me. Not like the most outgoing person, but I'm trying. So
you don't have to be.
Yeah.
Right? Just be authentically you and allow other people to experience that, right? Like I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned for just myself in learning, like, okay, I'm a big extrovert, I talk a lot, I interact a lot, but I really enjoy a lot of introverted people, where like we just get to hang out and have a coffee, like just the two of us. And it gives me an insight into like, oh, wow, this is an incredible person. They don't talk all the time, but they have crazy or wild, like really fun, unique and interesting and clever and intelligent. Like, yeah, hang out, have coffee, do all the fun stuff. You don't have to like be in front of a room and like, I would say, here's the thing I would say to you specifically. You don't have to be Dr. Iverson.
Yeah.
You don't have to be him. don't pretend to be him. It's not worth your time and effort, right? Like, it's one person in the field. Not every, he's the only IO person I know that's like him.
Okay, that's good.
There are other ones that are like, I hope you get a chance to meet Dr. Halleck, Daniel Halleck. He's also like remarkable, amazing. And I was, wow, he's inspiring. I'm not him. I'm not gonna be him. I could try and emulate some things I like about him, just for myself, and try like clothes and try them on and see if they fit. But there
I
are,
don't think that would work.
yeah, I mean, it's just, you try other people, but there's also other people in IO that are really quiet, but man, the output that they have is incredible. Like, they have some really amazing articles or insights or posts that they make. Like, I never connected those dots. That's incredible. Isn't there? There's a wonderful book about introverts, and my wife is a pretty big introvert as well, and so she read it and recommended it to me. I did not read it, but she told me about it. I'll have to get back with you on what it was, but it was essentially about how introverts like really run things. Like yeah, that's right. Introverts really do run the world, and they're a powerful group, remarkably so. So thank you for your presentation. Good job.
Hello, I'm Purvita again. So I'm going to talk about organizational health. For future, in futuristic aspect. So as we know, and Laura also had said that, like there's as much as we are very much careful about our personal health to get a drive to move on in our life, it is equally important to focus on employees and also organizational health, which will be defined as a company's ability to develop, follow, and communicate a common business strategy by maintaining a highly engaged workforce. So organizational health is also not only how you work in teams towards a same goal, it is also how you cope with the organizational health. So basically, it is a proactive, happy workspace moving towards a same shared vision. I would like to talk about 6 pillars of a healthy organization, which is first is organization alignment. It is basically, it ensures that an organization's vision towards a strategy and objective is aligned with employees' goals. This ensures a lot of, if the organization is aligned really well, it ensures a lot of employee good relationship, also highly enforced employees in an organization. Second is clearly communicated process and workflows. It is very important for the organization to have a clear communication towards employees, because if the organization do not have a good communication and understanding of the job responsibilities, it will be very difficult for the employees to give a good productivity towards the organization. Third is organizational fairness. So for employees like us in an organization, we often think that organization is not really fair towards them, because there's a huge gap in communication from organization leaders and employees. And this is the reason they always strive to search for that fairness, because if there's a lot of communication, maybe over communication, that reduces a lot of organization fairness in an organization. Employee well-being and development. When we talk about employee well-being, we just not focus on monetary incentive, because obviously if an organization pays us well, we are quite satisfied, but the satisfaction remains incomplete because it also involves a lot of internal factors, which is mental health, mental state, and physical health, also highly employee engagement activities. So I remember when I was on Amazon, obviously Amazon being Amazon, when Gleek was mentioning, it's not really the best company to look up to. Yes, we were paid very well, but at some point of time, I remember I remember my colleagues, which we were actually used to work in night shift because we catered to US retail employees. And I remember our work timing was 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Sorry, not 3 a.m., 6 p.m. in the evening to 3 a.m. at night. Yes, and I remember one of my employee, he was so much engrossed in fulfilling the tasks because we were overloaded with tasks. So if one employee was catered to few tasks, it was basically double of what like 2 employees were working. So he was so engrossed in completing the task. He basically stayed completely 24 hours in the organization. So when I returned the next day, he was still there in the same clothes, and I was like, okay, you look like a zombie, you're still here. And I remember he did that so often just to just to prove his abilities to the organization, where I feel that manager actually looked up to the employee, that this employee's performance is so good, but he completely, as a leader, completely ignored the fact that he did not have maybe he was not mentally well in the organization, because lack of sleep leads to low productivity at the end of the day. So basically short-term goals, yes, achieved by him, but not maybe long-term goals in an organization. Meaningful work. When we talk about meaningful work, we always feel that the job responsibilities or description should be meaningful to me as an employee, because I would like to work in an organization where I'm not hired for something which I don't know. So there are a lot of organizations I know that I'm hired as a newbie in an organization. After 6 months of probation, if I fail to prove my competencies or my KRAs, I am moved to a different job profile, or maybe internally saying that that happened. I've seen few employees in many organizations, maybe small organizations, where they know they can actually play with the employees skills, but then when they are moved to a different profile, it didn't make sense to them, because they were hired for something else, and then just because they were not being productive for the first 6 months in probation period, they moved to a different profile. So the work which they are doing should be very much meaningful to them. So the job description should be very much clear. Last but not least, the sixth pillar would be innovation. Digital innovation is something which is worldwide right now, and we are using a lot of software tools for performance appraisal system and a lot of other tools to actually track attendance, our compensation and pays and salaries, incentives. So this is what we are moving towards, and I feel the company should accept a lot of these automated tools just to make our work of our employees easier and more comfortable. These are called 5 frames of organization health, or maybe 5 A's towards organizational health. Aspire as to what you aspire in a company, to which goals do you want to achieve. Assess. If you're setting a goal, you need to assess, the organization needs to assess that if the goals are achievable. If not, they should step back. Architect as in, what are the tools, what are the outline of a strategy of a company needs to achieve that particular goal. Act is, how can you actually achieve the goal? What are the infrastructures you have, and how is the journey going to be to achieve that goal? And last but not the least, advancement, as to the company should always have that drive to get towards the goal. Advancement as in, it's very important for the organization to reach out to the leaders, to act as a drive to reach towards the ultimate goal. So this is what I found. McKinsey had performed a survey of organization health index, and these are the elements, 9 elements on which they have put several questions on each element just to measure the organization effective towards the organization health. So OHI, and they have rated those questions from 1 to 10 and surveyed worldwide, and they found that it was effective, but there was one limitation because every element had different aspects from different employees. So basically the limitation was there has to be a benchmark to compete against these elements. So different employees in different hierarchy had different opinions in regarding these 9 factors. But the if they identified these discrepancies, that's how they, catered towards the factors which were actually falling short of and paid attention to. Uh-oh. Okay. Yeah. Last but not the least, I would like to talk about the improvement towards organizational health, creating a cohesive, strong leadership team. So this is one of the points I feel I very much closely relate to, because leadership is something which I have felt in the organization is very important. It is so important for the leaders. I mean, every leaders have their own way of, leading the team, many leadership styles. But then the most important thing which is common for all the leaders is to involve themselves to the employees from the strategic planning to the evaluation throughout the year. Because a newbie needs very much support from the leader, and it is very important the leader to involve them towards their journey so that they can also empathize what they're going through. And I when I was in Vodafone, I had my manager, and she was full of knowledge. She had every possible knowledge regarding the job I was doing, but the most important thing which she lacked was leadership quality, the empathy, the skill to take feedback from employee. So it's very important for the leader to have that quality where you actually hold the team together very strong, and this is what is going to lead to higher productivity for the employees toward the organization. Be clear in your mission. If the organization is very much clear with the mission they will have something which is very much effective towards organization. Third is over communication. I feel every organization should have a common platform where they can post their strategies, agendas, new ideas, and also that platform should be accessible to the employees so that they can get a lot of communication and information towards, maybe for example, doing a new project. Because if an employee wants to do a new project, maybe they want to start off with, but then not with the right idea. So, over communication is something which is very important, because that again eradicates the organization fairness for the employee. So I was with Vodafone. We had a platform called Xphoria where all the teams and managers interacted, be it fitness or maybe other ideas in regarding the projects which is upcoming in Vodafone, which should be implemented, which should not be. And we all had a lot of ideas which were shared from different other departments. This is something which was really good to us, right from the engagement ideas to the ideas where we were leading new systems and projects. We had a complete transparency through the portal. reinforce your mission. This is like, it is very important just not to, for the organization, just not to document and develop a plan, but also share the plan to the employees very stimulating way and also very, like engaging way, as employees should be able to adapt the plan, because if we do not have a proper structure, it is very difficult for us to relate to the strategies and vision of the company. So it's very important, important to transfer them to the employees in a way that they can relate. Thank you. And I also want to say that, I have, sorry for being nervous, but yes, I have been in the organization, maybe 2 to 3 organizations for a short period of time, and wouldn't really focus on the bad side of Indian companies, but there is a very stereotypical way of leading few companies. If it's not MNC, if it's traditional Indian companies, they have traditional way of leading their companies, and they are so stringent. Few companies, they would be so stringent in moving ahead or moving out of the comfort zone to adapt maybe ways which MNCs are working. For example, the leader or manager, or maybe manager's manager, some companies still have cabins, their cubicles, which I feel doesn't really reflect well as a leader, because a lot of companies I know which MNCs have a common platform of working together, which I really love. And this is something, one of the things I want to tell you, that this is something which I really don't appreciate, because it obstructs the way of communication. It feels that you're always superior, and it doesn't really give a platform, an easy, comfortable platform to go to the manager and talk about your problems and issues. So few traditional ways which Indian companies still have, and that creates a lot of absenteeism, attrition, and lack of increase of attrition, lack of retention. So yeah, I mean, this is really important and an important topic, because I do relate few experiences in my organization with this topic. So yeah, thank you.
Right, a lot of content there. I would say the one challenge is it was like maybe a bit long. It was like 15, 16 minutes. So for a 5-minute presentation to have it be that long is really challenging. Then you're trying to cover way too much content that than the time allows. So that's a challenge.
Slow.
Right. Well, it's not slow. It wasn't slow at all. There's just so much. There's just a lot of material there. So I would try and like do it a bit ahead of time, and then know how much time it takes to get through them. I think the challenging part also is that it's towards the end. So there's no more time. Like we're really over for time. But thank you for good content. Appreciate it. Good job.
I do not have to go. We can totally go home. I was getting up here just in case, but I will not be offended. I know we're tired.
Well, I know we have another class, or you have another class. So what I was going to say is, if you're comfortable with recording it, is that okay?
Sure.
I would love a recorded presentation. Then I have the ability to show a great presentation of yours to future generations.
That's not my best work.
So I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes. Yes, as well. You can record it, because I know you have to eat, and I know you need time for your next class as well. So next week's our last week. If you want to bring food next week, you're allowed to bring food. I'll bring in some pizzas and stuff for everyone, so we'll have a backup for pizza. But if you want to do a potluck and bring something, that's great, and I'll have a bunch of pizza. And if you want to coordinate with yourselves, any other food that you want to bring, great. We'll have a great last class. Yes. Why not salads? I love that. Do we have some salads as well? Are you a salad kind of guy? All right. Are you going to join us next week?
He's coming to the next one.
maximum number of people in this class? I do not. I should. I don't have the number memorized. I would say somewhere around 30. That's the one. Quiet. Yes, yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Technically, yeah, I changed it to 12, like, but that's what I say. We're due shortly after the I have a few days, but the turnaround is like pretty quick. So I gotta get it. I hope, Cody, I hope you weren't offended with the Van Gogh comparison.
No.
It was a good, handsome picture of him. So
Hey, yeah, Van
you're in
Gogh's a
good
good
company.
looking guy, right?
Yeah, he's a
So-
good looking guy. Famously so.
Famously so. He painted himself.
Yes.
So
Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible. So the other things they have are.
Actually, the thing is, I have one thing that in Dr. Iverson's class, we have attended one lecture which is presented by some person on the interviewing skills. So I
Okay.
have the presentation on that part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do I just share
You
the
had met
reflection about the?
Sure.
Is
Yeah,
it fine?
that'd be fine.
Okay,
That
so
would be
I
what
was like,
document
alright,
that
that's
I'll be
cool.
sharing. Alright, thank you so
I
much.
think is what I kind of wanted to do was, you know how we're supposed to make like, mock-ups so that, and
Yeah.
I was thinking of like, I'm gonna go and get them animated and stuff, like having my hangouts.
Actually,
So,
I
for the
remember-
presentation, so I'm thinking that the presentation, obviously, we'll probably about like 3 job postings, right, like you need to